Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Hotline League. We are back after a break. There was not much going on, and so we took the week off, and we have returned triumphant this week to talk about this coming week, well, I should say weekend, of LCS, which I'm very excited to have return. It's also really good to be back on the show. We were just talking about this, Cubby, how it's funny you take 1 week off and it feels like it's so long. And it's good to be back.
Well, 1 week off the podcast is about 13 days. So one might actually claim it's 2 weeks off the podcast, Travis.
I think you're making a compelling argument, and I could be swayed to suggest that we had a 2 week break.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
That said, it is good to be back, Travis. What did you get up to in your break? Anything fun?
Nothing too crazy. I went to Anime Expo and did some 4th of July stuff and had a good time with that. Wasn't at Anime Expo for too long, but did get a chance to check out some of the Nikkei stuff, which was fun. I went up to the Nikkei booth and asked if they had, because I know they have like a content creator program, and I'm like, yo, I stream this game sometimes to the chagrin of some of my viewers. And I would love it, if I could talk to somebody about if you all have like a content creator program or something I can do as a streamer for the game. And then they went and found this one dude who works at Tencent, and he came up to me and he was like, yeah, do you have like a business card or something? I was like, no, here's like my socials though. And he just like looks at my phone. It's like, Travis Gafford. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'll let them know. They'll reach out to you. And I was like, okay.
Have they reached out yet?
No, they definitely. I don't think they're reaching out. That was. I don't think I would be a Nikkei content creator anytime soon, Cubby. But I tried.
Oh, that's too bad.
I tried. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
That's good.
Yes. So there was that, and then the cool thing is, I'll say this really quickly. Our sponsors for this episode are Prize Picks, which, by the way, if you haven't signed up for Prize Picks, we are starting to talk to them about Worlds soon, and so if you sign up and make your first time deposit, if you're thinking about playing Prize Picks, I would consider a personal favor, assuming you're in the capacity to do so responsibly, et cetera, if you signed up and made a deposit this week, because I'm trying to we're starting to talk to people about Worlds, and it would be really exciting for me if I could do some Worlds coverage this year. Europe is expensive. Secondly, we got NZXT. They've got a summer sale going on. We're going to talk about that more later on. But the thing that we were asking me what I did during the break, I can tell you what I did today, which I guess was not the break. But at the end of the break, I got my EV9 delivered. We have, for the next week,
Ooh, I saw that.
An EV9 available to me. And this weekend, because the LCS is in the closet, I'm going on a road trip to Evo. This worked out really well. This was not even like a planned Kia thing. They were like, what's a good week for us to loan you this car so you can like make some content with it? I said this week, and then some friends started asking me if I wanted to go out to Evo in Vegas. For those of you that are not familiar, Evo is like the biggest fighting game esports event. I guess you shouldn't say esports. A lot of people don't want you to say esports in the fighting game. The biggest fighting game event of the year. And so I'm going to drive that out to Vegas on Friday. So I'll be watching LCS in the closet from the hotel, but looking forward to that. So, but that car, I love it. And I won't talk too much about it because I know we have a Kia spot later on in the show, but I am really excited about it. So thank you to all of our sponsors for the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cubby,
huge shout out to them.
Cubby, you want to go for a ride sometime this week?
Sure. That sounds fun, actually. If you want to go get some brunch or coffee or some boba, I'm in.
Honestly, we should do that just so that you can see how cool the car is. Like I was so excited. I tweeted about it, and somebody was like, "Oh, obviously a sponsored tweet." And I was like, legitimately, they didn't tell me to tweet this. This tweet is not part of the contract. I'm just like, I drove it around a little bit today, and I was like, this car is sick. So I really like it.
What's the range on it?
It's just below 300 on a charge.
Okay, that's not terrible for a bigger car too.
No, it is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I think it's really good for a big car, especially because, well, whatever. I know there's a spot later on in the show, and everybody's gonna scream at us saying it's like an ad. But I wish they would let me borrow this vehicle for longer than a week because it is super cool. All right. Anyway, What did you get up to during the break, Hubby?
I went home this past weekend. I played a golf event with my dad. Um, it was fun. I grew up I played the course that I played at growing up. This event, it's like a member guest. So growing up, I used to caddy for my dad's guest, and my best buddy used to caddy for my dad. So it was really fun to be able to go back and play with him. We were the way it is, like they divvied up. There's 72 teams. They divvied up into 12 flights, and there were 6 teams of flight. So you play a match against all those teams. It's like 9 holes, best ball. We were 1 point away from winning our flight, so we played okay. We kind of choked on the last day, which was a bummer.
That's cool though that you got to do that.
Yeah. It was really special. It was really fun, and I saw kids like I used to grow up with, playing golf with or like tennis against, and saw them, met their girlfriends, and saw where they're at now. Some have kids now. It's crazy. But yeah, it was a really good excuse to get home and spend some time with my dad. So and my mom, of course. But yeah.
Yeah, that is really neat. I'm glad you got to do that. For folks who are wondering why we don't have a guest tonight, part of it is because I reached out to a whole bunch of people, and the answers were almost always, I have content tonight because I'm getting ready. Like a lot of the teams are doing content, I guess, this evening, or I don't know, maybe
That's
Riot's
good.
shooting some stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody's like shooting stuff for the return of the LCS this weekend. And then the other folks I reached out to were like, I'm still at home on vacation, or I am flying back. One of the LCS personalities that I reached out to is flying back from their trip home this evening. Another one is still far away. So there's just a lot of people who couldn't. So that's fine, because I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff to talk about in this week's episode as we get into preparing for the start of the return, I guess I should say, of the split. So it kind of feels like the start again. So
Yeah.
But yeah.
It even came with a roster move.
Yeah. This morning, an interesting roster move, which we can talk about on the show. I do. Yeah, we were just to blab a little bit more at the beginning of the show, because we got a little space. Whenever it's just you and me, it's fine. You were trying to convince me that there's some good television on these days, and I haven't been watching any TV.
Yes. As my sad duty of being a Star Wars fan, I've kept up with the Acolyte, and I think the show gets more hate than what it should get, but I also don't think it's necessarily super good. So that's all I'll say about that. And then
again, you said there was some good TV on, and then you give me that.
It's just what I'm keeping up with. The actual good TV is House of the Dragon. It's really good. If people are salty about Game of Thrones and how it ended, just the first 4 seasons of that season, that show, just think back. It was great television. This is following the books, just like it was back then when it had to. This is good television. House of the Dragon is really good television. So I need to watch the latest episode. It comes out on Sunday. I haven't seen it yet. But I gotta say, I think that House of the Dragon is legitimately fantastic television. I'm really enjoying it.
Do we talk about this on the show before? I don't want to go over it if we have, but
no, I don't know if I know your Game of Thrones tags.
So I really liked Game of Thrones. The thing that gets me really excited about fantasy novels and fantasy shows and all that stuff are a couple things. I'm most frequently intrigued by old world mystery stuff. There's an ancient civilization, or all this lore that works within the fantasy worlds. I also really like magic systems. And I don't think it is a spoiler to say that the end of Game of Thrones really focused on the politics. And even though they had been building up, the magic and the lore and sort of this back magic part of this world, who built the wall, and what are these different magic systems? What is this? What are the White Walkers, etc.? There was so little time, and it was just so rushed that I felt so burned on it. And I think my philosophy with House of the Dragon, because I've had a lot of people trying to convince me to watch it, is I'm going to wait until the whole series is finished in however many years. I don't know if they've committed to X number of seasons.
And then just binge it.
And then I will just decide, based off of what I hear from people, if it is something I would like. Because if it is just sort of the politics stuff of Game of Thrones, I enjoyed. but it started to just feel like a lot of the politics just became like the shock value of what happened in the political machinations of that world. And I never got the payoffs for the things that intrigue me most about fantasy. So I will make that decision, I guess, whenever we get
Okay.
closer to the ending. But yeah.
I mean, that's fair. Like, I think the whole issue with Game of Thrones is like they ran out of book material, and then Benioff and Weiss and HBO were like, let's rush this shit so we can get more stuff out. And it was just all like, it ruined all the intrigue and like what made the show beautiful, which was the fact it was a slow burn and they were building up those things in the early seasons. I think that for House of the Dragon, the pacing does jump around, but I do think that it really focuses on the characters. And like the majority of season one, you kind of see the upbringing of the characters that are involved now in season two and the bigger events. And because of that, you do get some really good character moments and payoffs, which I really appreciate. And it's doing a decent job of world building. So I think based on all that, I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It gave me like some toe curling moments, which like doesn't usually happen in shows for me.
Now,
So I've really appreciated that.
I feel like that phrase means something different, Cubby.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it
Is toe
it does.
curling,
And
is it supposed to be like it's exciting?
yes,
I feel
well,
like
I don't know. It's been good. That's all I got to say.
we're going to move on from this part of the show. We're going to discuss the things that are happening this week, which is LCS and not Cubby's moments. So, what do we got this week? We have some matches. We've got Dignitas TL, IMT FlyQuest, and then on Sunday we got C9 100 Thieves, NRG Kia, and Shopify Rebellion right afterwards. So that's our Saturday and Sunday for this week. I think pretty fun. I'm hopeful that the Saturday matches can deliver some hype with Dignitas, and hopefully that they have spent their break sort of retooling and becoming what was, I think, what a lot of people were hoping they were going to be, and sort of especially after that first week. But I guess we'll find out what's going to happen. So we can talk about that, and would love to get your takes. I did see before the start of the show some folks saying like, "Oh, I think 100 Thieves is going to win this split," or "I think X Team is going to win." I think this is a great episode for that. We are like almost halfway through the split. We're coming back from the break. I think it's a good time to sort of get people's predictions for the rest of the split. So if you guys want to talk about that, that'd be great, or some just general takes on where we're at with the LCS. I think that would be very fun. Again, we've been making a concerted effort, I think, after June, when there was just a ton of stuff coming out constantly. It looks like YouTube had a quick blip. I don't know what's going on. Are we back over on YouTube? I'm sorry. It looks like Twitch is fine, so I'm going to assume it's just a YouTube issue. Sorry. Anyway, June, we spent a lot of time reacting to like big news, we're merging regions. We are doing, the summer finals in LA. We're doing all this stuff. I think now's a good time to really focus in on sort of the gameplay and all that stuff. And we can take some of those calls, but I just know that like one of the things that a lot of people felt was that we weren't doing enough talking about the games. And I want to say that like that feedback will be addressed. I think we try to do that a little bit on the last episode, but especially going forward. So all that to say, if you have feedback, always let us know. But also if you have really great takes about the matches and teams and all that stuff, go for it.
Yeah, I think in terms of news and stuff that I know has been kind of popular to hit on, I will say that I will take one call, Travis, about LEC if people are interested. I know that like those games are actually going on in playoffs. And obviously the Tomio being bench for Bugi, and that swap coming in. I want to take a call on that for sure.
Yeah, I think LEC stuff. I don't mind grabbing something if it relates to the LCS.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
I do think I know another hot topic. I don't know if you want to take it or not. Is Riot potentially looking at hardware bans for soft inting, or also like just punishing soft inting with AI in the ladder? I don't know if you want to take that or not. Some
I
people
mean,
really
if
care
somebody
about
feels
that.
really
I don't
strongly
care.
about it, I think that's
Yeah.
fine. We normally are focused more on the LCS, but I think that
Yeah.
again, as long as the stuff is sort of within the context of LCS, that could be. We can stretch a little bit on this week's episode outside of our stuff. Do you want to talk about what happened with Tomio, by the way? Because I think a lot of people maybe missed it because it
Yeah.
wasn't widely announced, or it
So,
wasn't widely seen, I think.
well, to be fair, Shopify Rebellion doesn't post a ton of LCS content, but they did for this, as it was a roster change. And yeah, Tomio's bench for Bugi. They feel like Bugi is going to give more direction to the team, and that was pretty much their explanation. I'll be honest, I kind of skimmed through the 2-minute video. I just saw the news, and I think that we'll have a call that gives takes. I think that it would have been hard for any rookie jungler to succeed in that team. And I think going back to what Bugi, like for me, that team needs an X factor, and Bugi might be an X factor. Whereas I feel like with Tomio, they just kind of played standard and were the worst team in the league. So they were losing to everyone, and it wasn't good. So,
Yeah, I'm very curious to hear what people's reactions are to
yeah,
Shopify. I mean, I know a lot of people realize that I have been frustrated with Shopify's performance as a brand within the league, but I also would say that I don't feel like they've had. I don't know. I think we'll see what this does, but I'd also like to hear what people's thoughts are on it. I guess it's the best way to put it. Oh, by the way, I know we aren't really talking about it much, but just to make sure that people, just to spread some information after some misinformation was around the community. There was some rumors that the MSI stuff was going to take place in Saudi Arabia next year, linked to their event. And Greeley came out from Riot and said, like, oh, no, that was never going to be true. So I don't know where that came from. I think it was one of those things where some people are speculating and then some people decided it was fact and just kind of ran with it. But
people looked at the schedule and just kind of assumed that with the 3 splits and them like having a big event and money that would be something that might happen. Frankly, I mean, I fell under the assumption that would be the case looking at how the schedule's lined up. Like it was pretty much lined up to be the same weekend or a weekend later.
I think it's just like for me as somebody who knows Riot, I don't think Riot's ever going to hand off something like that to somebody else. I think they just want to do so much of that stuff in house. I mean, the league esports would have to be in a really miserable state for something like that to happen. And maybe even more so to say that Riot would have to be in a pretty miserable state for something like that to happen. So I think if you look at the way they approached the Saudi Arabia stuff this year, they basically just said jack shit about it. They did like no promotion for it. I don't think the LoL esports channel was tweeting about it. So I think they almost seemed as I'm like scrolling back to make sure that I didn't miss anything. But yeah, the LoL esports Twitter I don't think posted about it once. So they took about the same approach. All the LoL esports content took about the same approach to that event as I think we did on Hotline League, which was don't talk about it, don't cover it.
Continuing to be a Riot shill, huh?
I think
them.
I feel like if this, no disrespect to you, Cubby, because I know you said that you thought that was what was going to happen, but for me, the obvious signs that they were moving towards that would have been if they spent literally a single ounce of energy promoting that event or acknowledging its existence. And the fact that they didn't, I think, always made it seem obvious to me that like they were just sort of letting it happen for the teams and all that stuff. And I don't know. So I don't know. But yeah, we don't have to worry about that. So nobody panic. Oh, we did get scheduling out for Worlds though. So I don't know if you saw that, Cubby. Did you?
Yes, but I didn't see all the venues.
So the venues I think were previously announced. We knew that that we were going to be in the Riot Games Arena in Berlin for Plans and Swiss, which I think is the majority of Worlds, certainly the majority of the games, which is kind of annoying. But then they go to Paris at the Adidas Arena for quarterfinals and semifinals. And then we knew that finals was going to be in London. So, yeah. It's nice. Nice to have that information out finally. And I think they put out ticket information. I'm not sure. But yeah. Should we get into takes?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
All right. Hey, if you guys want to call in, we do have a lot of room for callers today. Go to discord.gg/Travis or command Discord in the chat to find the link. Hop on in, drop your call in pleb takes, or if you're cool, subtopics. We'll pull your take if it's good, pull you in the waiting room. I'll hop in, we'll grab you, and you can call into the show with me and Travis. And again, looking for takes about LCS games coming up, some LCS news, specifically Tomio and Bugi being swapped out, and anything else you guys can think of that would be relevant. So looking forward to seeing what you guys have in store. And with that said, Travis, I'll go grab the first one.
Sure. So off goes Cubby. Do you want to say that it's a bit of a lighter episode because I think a lot of people didn't realize we were back tonight after the week break. It usually happens whenever we take a week off of the show. A lot of people get out of the rhythm of it, or maybe they assumed we wouldn't be back until after the first week of LCS. So if you are trying to get on the show, or you have been looking to get on the show for a while, tonight's a good episode to get in and get your take on. Also, thank you to everybody who has subbed. We took that week break off, and then we also had Twitch upped the cost of subs, and so I think we've just had a lot of subs that have expired. So if you are, I guess, a YouTube member, or if you want to become a Twitch sub, doing so really helps, because I think we're down about 35 to 40% from where we were, a couple weeks ago. So always trying to recover from that whenever we take a break, because it's very financially impactful, I think, whenever we skip a week. Anyway, Yami is here. Yami, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the great, not a state, but Washington, D.C.
The great district?
The great district, maybe hopefully soon a state of Washington, D.C.
Yeah, that seems unlikely, as sad as that is. Anyway, sorry, continue.
But yeah, so my take is basically, after the 3 weeks we've had of LCS so far, I think Steve was right at the beginning of the season. TL has a legitimate chance to go undefeated this regular split at least. Basically, TL has been scaling since the beginning of this season. And with how much and how hard they practice, I don't really see them falling off, especially if they take this, especially considering that they had a chance this long break to play versus some foreign teams who are pretty good and get some extra experience that other teams don't really pick up during the rest of the year, or that other teams aren't really going to be able to match. And even then, they probably took the rest of the time to practice and do their normal, we're grinding 15 hours a day or whatever.
Sure.
But not only scaling, I think that the rest of the competition for the top tier of the league looks a lot weaker. Dig was completely destroyed by FlyQuest, which is a team that TL beat in a pretty convincing series. C9 looked really shaky in their series versus Dig. That's who TL is playing this weekend. And with single round robin, they don't really have to worry about facing the other pretty good teams for the rest of the split. So once they beat these teams,
did you mention C9? Sorry, I was looking at the schedule.
I did say C9. They have C9 coming up this week, and C9 looked shaky versus Dig, who was destroyed by FlyQuest, who's a team TL already beat.
They've got Dig coming up this week. They've got C9 on August 4th. So.
Oh, my bad.
No, you're good.
Dig's still one of the better tests, assumedly so.
Yes.
Again.
Yeah. So you're feeling pretty confident, and you say undefeated. I assume they've dropped a
maps.
game, right? Yeah.
Right. Undefeated series.
Yeah, it's a match. Yeah, and I think that's right. In a best of 3, if they win every best of 3, I think people can definitely say they're undefeated. Okay, so and that's basically all of it. I don't have it. You do have any other reasoning that you want to throw out there, or is that all your take? Yeah,
I think those are my main the main points. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is much more reasonable than I thought it was whenever Steve said it. And I believe their first series was a little bit closer, right? If I recall. When they faced FlyQuest.
It could have been a FlyQuest 2-0, but game 3 was very TL favored.
Yeah.
And each team, game 1 was, the classic FlyQuest versus TL, bloody match. These guys just like throw down whenever they hit the rift for like 2 kills a minute. Yeah, it was kind of back and forth, but game 3 was really convincing in TL's favor. So I think people walk away with it feeling like TL was the better team.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the fact that they've made it this far and they continue to look pretty good, and also that it feels like there's not best of 3 is doing what best of 3 does, which I feel like is making the league look less close. You know, best of 1s usually you feel like there's greater parity. It's hard. Look, here's an interesting stat. Everyone has a losing record except for Cloud9, TL, and FlyQuest right now. So it's easy to look at Team Liquid and be like, well, the only team that they have to face that has a winning record at the moment is Cloud9. So all they probably really need to worry about is Cloud9. As I said, I do think the Dignitas stuff could be really interesting. It's hard for us to talk too much about that without seeing what this break did for them, but I think I buy this take, Cubby. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I keep on thinking of the quote. I think it came from Spawn after MSI, and I forget who said it, but it was in the TL, like, you know, someone from TL said it, and it said their goal is to be the G2 of NA. And I think a lot of people interpreted that as, oh, they want to make NA look like a 1-tier region where they're the best. I actually think that, like, that came more so from they want their process to be so good that they are always going to be competitive towards the top. Just knowing TL and like how they think, they don't want the result. They want to think about the process. And it's very clear in EU that G2 has the best process where they have been able to run this roster with multiple iterations, like within G2, and always be the top team, right? Now, I think that TL, like, obviously you have a really long way to go with that because G2 has made LEC look rather uncompetitive with them on top for a long time. And only certain like teams or eras have been able to compete with G2 for a split or two at a time, but never years on end the way that G2 has had it. But I was really thinking about that today. I recorded the jungle earlier on. And I feel like TL, like, if they make a run this split and win the split, like going back to back with this crew, that would actually be the start of like them actually trying to be the G2 of NA. And I know that like the recent showing at EWC, a lot of teams felt like they put on a rather respectable showing. I also want to shout out FlyQuest, who I didn't catch the games, but also put on a rather respectable showing, is what people said. But TL were a team that like managed to take a game off T1, and people feel like are pretty legitimate contenders. And I think if TL comes back and dominates the region, then I mean that is really step one of going back to back with this crew of being the G2 of NA. And I think that if you are TL, that's your goal now. Like your goal has to like be to win the region and then what, which is like obviously the dream. I do think that the caller is underselling the competition they have in C9, as I think that the C9 that played Dignitas was not the same C9 as we've seen the past couple weeks. I do think that C9 also played Shopify Rebellion and Immortals the last couple weeks, so I actually am kind of curious to see C9 get ever so slightly challenged again, just to see where they're at, because the leads they got against those teams, they won't get against the other teams in the league, based on my assumption. But yeah, I think saying that TL is going to go undefeated this split is not. I mean, I really give it like a.
I am more in line
60-40 in their favor. It's a 60-40
I'm more in line with
favor.
the caller's take than the take that I heard you sneak in there, which is that like TL should just be looking right now to win, and then like become the team that just sort of you expect to win. And
it's the first step of them doing that.
It's the first step, but they've also only won one, right?
I know.
Like, I don't want to pretend. You know, I think when we get to, if we were just after spring of next year and they had won 3 finals back to back, then I agree with you.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm just looking to see if they could win 2.
No, you're right. Like, and I mean, the thing is, again, it's a longevity thing. Like, that's what G2's had. But if they won back to back and then had a very respectable international performance, that would be one like putting the brick in the first year of like actually accomplishing this and then pushing forward.
Sure.
Which I think is very like that is looking rather far out. But again, to the caller's point, for me, that looks kind of realistic right now, based on what we've seen from TL.
Do you think that if they go undefeated, they win finals?
I'm saying going undefeated, including winning finals. Yes, I still think that they're going to have a harder route than what G2 has in LEC, since I'm making the comparison. I do think that C9 and FlyQuest are more competitive than like what G2 is facing right now in LEC. But I think TL can do it.
Do you think though?
They should be the favorites to win right now.
If they win, if they go undefeated in regular summer split, you're saying they at that point in time you assume they just win playoffs.
I mean, we'll see. There's playoff patch, but I think that they're the favorites for sure. Like right now, I think they're the favorites to win both.
Oh, I definitely think they're the favorites. I just I have seen so many times where a team has been very dominant in the summer split or the spring split and then don't even make finals. And so I kind of have always mentally separated these two things where it's like, okay, yes, you're probably getting top 4 or top 3 if, well, I guess we don't really have, but yeah, you get like top 4, top 3 if you do really well. But I do think that FlyQuest, C9, and probably Dignitas, if they can get their stuff together, should be real playoffs contenders. Because that's the other thing, Cubby, is that like the best of 3 format, and actually not even the best of 3, the single round robin, I think has the chance to like really mess with skew expectations going into finals or into playoffs, because I think you have a lot less data.
I mean, you play the same amount of games. It's just that when you play a team, it's further spread out.
But that's what I mean. So like, let's say FlyQuest. So TL played FlyQuest the first week, right? There's a world where at the end of this, FlyQuest is really good or has TL's number, and you just don't know because they haven't played for 3 months.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why, like, I think playoffs are going to be. I know we're kind of going off topic, but I'm enjoying the conversation. It's going to be a little bit more chaotic.
I mean, I will say that, like, I think the odds are we're going to get TL versus FlyQuest or TL versus C9 twice, given the strength of each of those teams right now.
Yeah.
So there is also a chance for, like, you get more recent data. And, I mean, the playoff patch is stagnant, so it's not like you're playing on the live patch. Like, I think one of the big challenges of LCS this week will be they never even played on 14-13, and then 14-14 is going to be what they're playing on this week. So I think that actually is going to be kind of tough, too. So the game's a little bit different, but I mean, I got to say right now, TL looks really disciplined in the way they play, and their individuals are playing well. And the only weakness that I've really seen with at least Spawn teams in the past, and it's part of what I love about Spawn, is that he plays to win the game. And that means that you're going to play picks that are proactive early. And I've seen sometimes like there are just days where his team's cold, they're not making the right plays, and they will fizzle out. Because it's not like they're going to play and wait and sit on their ass to scale. So I really feel like the only way that like TL can really get got is if they have one of those days in their current form. I'm still waiting for like C9 and FlyQuest to show a little bit more to challenge them. I think it's going to be a lot closer than like what G2 has in EU. Again, since I'm making the comparison to them, this split, I feel like FlyQuest and C9 are way better competition than what we have over in LEC.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the TL are the favorites to win right now.
I definitely don't feel like LCS is a one-team region with TL at the top, which is, I think, what most folks feel about LEC right now.
Yes.
So.
G2 is way better than the rest of the teams there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to do a better job of checking in with callers while we're going through this stuff. I guess let me ask you this. If I ask Cubby this, if Team Liquid goes undefeated, do you assume they just win finals?
I think I'm kind of leaning more towards you were at, which is basically like finals can be a lot more chaotic, especially with the single round robin, which since my take is predicated on the single round robin format for the regular season, I should acknowledge that, like, yeah, I think that if you do a double round robin, there's always a chance that like a team like FlyQuest scales over the season, something goes weird, and we will have no data points for this finals going in. I also just think with the losers bracket and all of the different things, there's going to be like opportunities to upset that we don't get in the regular season, which is why I constrained it to the regular season. But if I'm going with my heart as a TL fan, I do want to say like, yeah, heck yeah, I think they'll win summer.
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Cubby.
I'll give the cop out of I want to see where the teams are at, but like right now, I would say in all the teams' current forms, like Yeah, I would expect TL to win LCS. That could change in a couple weeks. Like other teams could level up, or TL could be like having a issue or two. Who knows? So I'm not gonna
Yeah.
say like I assume, but I think right now, yeah, TL are the favorites.
I I will say, as somebody who has been critical of the best of three and single round robin format for summer, one thing that is very hype about it is that a team like Team Liquid basically gets to do, the Grim Reaper meme where they're like knocking on the doors, and you see the doors in the past of people who have been passed. Cubby, help me out here. You know this meme, right? The
Yes,
Grim Reaper meme.
the Grim Reaper. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were zoning out, and I needed somebody to affirm my "Do you
We're
know
good.
this
We're good.
meme" reference. I think it is cool that Team Liquid basically every week, as long as they are winning, gets to cross another name off the list, right? Like every team you defeat is one less team that you have to worry about in this type of format, and so I think it is kind of hype, and I feel like if they win this weekend against Dignitas, it would be kind of cool if both either LCS or Team Liquid or both start pulling that type of marketing of like, all right, these ones are down. This is their next challenge. Like, I think leaning into that. And I guess you could do the same for C9, right? Obviously the take is about Team Liquid, but if you look at the standings right now, C9 is also 3-0. And so if they're both undefeated until their match against each other, that's going to be really, really cool. So
Yeah. I mean, I will say that C9, like, I mean, they they crapped on Immortals and Shopify Rebellion, but they did play the two biggest teams in the league probably. So
yeah. So
yeah, there's that too.
Either way, looking forward to it. Yami, thanks so much for the take, and I really appreciate that we were getting back to some of these like big assertions. So thanks for the call. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, I have two shout outs. So my number one shout out, and this is old news, is shout out to TL for re-signing APA and Jan for I think 2 more years. It's really great to see these guys like come up through NACL and then like become mainstays of the team, and like it's really cool for NA talent to be succeeding like this. Actually just thought of another shout out to NACL for having like 12K views on YouTube on the most recent video. I think that's really, really cool. I'm happy they started posting the VODs. And then my final shout out to my friend Happy Blue Guy, who's usually a VOD viewer for Hotline League, but is right now watching live and DM'd me on Discord when I came on the call. So
let's go.
I do want to address one thing you said there, not to be Mr. Negative, but it is cool that Team Liquid re-signed them for a long period of time. I do feel like, as it stands, contracts are meaningless in the LCS, where like just because teams sign 3-year deals all the time and then they just boot a player. So I hope that what you are saying is true, and obviously they have had a franchise player like Core JJ around for a long time. They even brought Impact back. You can kind of count that. And I would like to see, like you, I really hope Jan and APA work well, and that we can see them for a very long time on the team.
That's super fair.
Thanks so much, though, Yami, for the call, and catch you next time.
Thanks.
All right. We are going to take a quick break right now to talk about our first sponsor shout-out of the evening, which is none other than Prize Picks. And I would like to highlight my co-host here. Cubby, do you want to talk about what your Prize Picks experience was during the break?
Oh, July 4th, hot dog eating contest. There might have been no Joey Chestnut, but there was a dub for me. I picked some mores, the fact that people would eat more hot dogs than projected, because that's truly American. You can't go less for 4th of July. You got to go more.
You looked at the weather, right? Wasn't that your strategy?
I did check the weather, because I learned that for each like bonus degree that it is hotter, you're estimated to eat one more hot dog because your stomach is more expanded. So I did check that. It was going to be a hot day, and I managed to win. Also because Prize Picks had a special promotion where, of course, you have to make picks where you combine different selections. Well, they had one where if someone ate more than a half a hot dog, that would count. So pretty much you were getting a free one for a pairing. So I had that on my card, and I ended up finding a win. So that was quite fun with Prize Picks.
Yeah. So it was cool. Cubby tweeted about it on the 4th of July. I also played Prize Picks on that hot dog eating contest, and I lost. But Cubby he had some promotional credit we had hooked him up with, Prize Picks had hooked him up with, and you had $20 power play on James Webb, Nick Wiry, and then I think you also, as we were talking about that sort of that free square of Jeffrey Esper, and all of them went over your prediction, which is what you wanted. You said it was going to be more than this. And
truly
so
American.
$20 power play became $100 for Cubby. So congratulations to Cubby on 4th of July. If you have been trying to play Prize Picks and you've been like, LCS is on a break. Guess what, guys? LCS is back. Please check it out. You can sign up using my link, which is in the description of the VOD, the podcast, and hopefully one of my mods. Oh, there's Numi doing it right now. Numi has the link right there. Also, if you sign up and you don't use the link, just use promo code Travis. Please, 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 if you sign up, use my promo code or that link so that they know. And then when you make your first deposit, they'll match up to the first $100 on that. And if you have been thinking about doing this, actually we have some data that says that a lot of folks have signed up for it but have maybe not made that first deposit, or maybe you haven't signed up at all. Please do so if you're thinking about doing it, and you can do so responsibly, and it's fine for you to do it. You feel good about it. Please do so in the next week or so, because we were talking to them about doing some stuff around Worlds, as I mentioned at the start of the show, and it would be really cool to make sure that we have some great arguments for why them helping me get to Worlds would work well. So thank you so much to Prize Picks for sponsoring the show. Congratulations to Cubby on his hot dog prize pick prizing. I guess there's got to be some better alliterative term than that. But either way, thank you so much to Prize Picks for sponsoring the show. Hopefully you all are enjoying that if it is something that you are able to get access to in your locale and feel comfortable enough to do. So thanks to Prize Picks. All right, you want to get to the next call?
Yeah, got it.
All right. Off Cubby goes. Yeah. Cubby can now tell people he won $100 in a hot dog eating contest on 4th of July and then refuse to elaborate, and people will think that he slammed the hot dogs. What's the name that people are using? The Gen Z folks are calling them something now. I forget what they're using. Is it like Glizzy? Glizzy, that's what it is. Thank you, Twitch chat. They're slam the glizzies. All right. Our second caller of the evening is here. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, it's Ezekiel from the sewers of Minnesota.
Ezekiel from Minnesota. What do you want to talk about on the show?
All right, so my take is that Dignitas, because they've had now like a month and a half break, they're going to come either top 3 or maybe even top 2 this split. Well, in the win-losses, of course, like not overall, because I don't think they can come back.
Well, yeah, playoffs. You could extend the playoffs. You know.
Oh yeah, we could go to playoffs. Yeah, I could say that.
Wait, sorry. When you say, can they not get top 2 or top 3 just off of matches?
Well, because I think C9 and
they have a 2-game
Team
lead.
Liquid will do well. Yeah, I don't think they'll lose to anyone besides
C9 has tiebreaker over them, along with FlyQuest already.
Yeah. So. Okay, that's fair. They could get top 3 though.
Yeah, I think so. I think top 3. I think they'll beat out FlyQuest in terms of record.
All right. And why do you think this?
Because now that they've had like the month and a half off, I think that like their main weakness was the lack of time practicing together. A lot of them hadn't played in pro play for a while, like Christian Sven especially. And I think the time off will help them come back from that.
So what is your concern, or do you have any concern about the reports that their practice is shitty, for lack of a better term?
I think that was a concern last split when that was more recent. I'm hoping that they're doing a bit better over the break.
Well, you say last split, you mean like the start of the split?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before the month and a half off, or the 2 months or whatever it was.
Sorry, I don't know if you're memeing about how long the break was, or are you talking about it was a concern in spring split, or are you talking about it was a concern in the beginning of summer split?
For the Mark Z propaganda break.
Got you, yeah. The 17-month long break. Okay. So it's your expectation that this team has figured out their practice issues and that they are coming in pretty strong.
Yeah, I think that's my take. I think Dignitas. Well, I'm 50-50 on this. Either Dignitas will beat Team Liquid and go 3-0, which I think is the best, or sorry, 4-0 for the rest of this split, the last 4 games.
Okay.
Is Price
So
Books
Dig's winning
available
out.
in Minnesota? Because if so, you got to. Sorry. Anyways, you don't
I
think you
I
finished.
I would put it this way. I think Licorice can beat Impact. I think Licorice is a consistently able to overperform. Like his highs are really high. And I think Sven will want to beat Eon really bad. They've been driving that narrative. They have their last video that the LCS put out just before the start of the break.
The shake video, which
Yeah.
was fun. That was a good video.
It was decent. I think Sven is a very competitive guy. He is obsessed with feeling like he's like better than other people. I think he'll want to beat out Eon. And I think Yeon is coming off of a time when he's been doing really well for a while. And I think he's improved a lot because of all the flame he's gotten. I think if there's any time when he's going to be at his weakest, it's going to be after doing really well for a while.
Cubby.
Okay. I will give the caller this. The teams that I would argue needed the break the most would probably be NRG, 100 Thieves, and Dignitas. Like I think a break, especially with Dig just being like, yeah, every scrim we're kind of getting crapped on, like that makes sense to me. My thing though with Dig is that they actually looked okay on stage because of their competitive experience, because when games slowed down, they were actually able to make decent decisions on stage, and that put them in much better spots than what I'm assuming they were getting in scrims. So, like, what are the scrims for? Like, shaping up your individual play, which like can be shaped up in other points. Maybe some direction and what they want for early game is probably the biggest thing they needed to work on. I think that's probably the argument that I would use to say that Dig like will come out better, is saying that they buff their early games, because I do think that Dig, like of all the things they needed to buff up, it's probably being a little bit more dominant in early game. Like that's the biggest want for a checklist for Dig being successful. That's pretty high up there for me. If we're gonna find a world where Dig's top 2. I mean, we it's been a 3-week break. I don't know what's gonna happen. Like I don't know what Dig's gonna look like. But for me, if they wanted to finish top 3 this split in regular season, they would need to. What we saw from Dig earlier to now would need to be drastic and much higher than what I'd expect out of a 3-week break. And toppling TL is something that I do not expect based on my last call.
I mean,
So, yeah.
I would say this. I agree with the TL part. Them beating out TL, I think I consider that pretty low chances. That's something I'd like to see, because I think that'd be good narratively. I think that'd be good for Yeon. I think that also be good for Berserker. I'm really sad that Dignitas did not beat Berserker, because I think Berserker needs. I think seeing Sven, the guy who he lost or who he beat out the place for, beat him, would be the kind of thing that would really like reinvigorate to try and come back for a lot of these players. And but the other thing is, so in the last part of this split, Dignitas played what is it? They played FlyQuest, C9, and 100 Thieves. They only beat 100 Thieves. I think that saying that they've gotten better than FlyQuest over the break, and that they're still worse or around on par with C9 does not sound that outrageous.
I mean, we saw FlyQuest more recently. Like, I think they put up a rather respectable performance against G2.
G2 is in the dumps right now.
Okay, they're still gonna win LEC, but that's fine.
They were at the start of this LEC split. I think that they were like 3rd or 4th, weren't they?
Yeah, but that they were coming off MSI where they weren't practicing as much because they needed the break.
Yeah,
And now they're back to like expected to win the league as they should be.
Yeah, I think it's something worth thinking about. But I would just say the other thing is I think it's not that implausible that Dig loses to TL, beats Shopify, beats NRG, beats Immortals.
Yeah, that's not implausible, but I think that they still would need help to end up 3rd. I mean, regardless, like, who cares about where you're at regular season, right? Like, what's your roadmap for Dig actually taking like a top 3 spot and making worlds in playoffs? Like, what are your hopes there?
I would say the only way that any LCS team does well at Worlds is in the world
We're talking about
where
making worlds, though. Not just
I,
doing well at worlds.
I think I think they probably make Worlds. I would say C9, TL, and I think third place Dig
Uh,
would be my guess.
okay, so how do we topple FlyQuest then?
I think FlyQuest is already on track to fall apart.
Okay, why is that?
Uh, their jungler does not know how to stop flaming people, and they're not good together.
Okay.
I think Quad has played decently, and I think like if you wanted to say like who's the teams that are going to be the best, gaining the most from the break, you could also say FlyQuest because of Quad, but I I just don't see it.
Okay, so a couple things here. One, to go back to the TL thing, I honestly feel like I like the take that there's a chance that Dig beats Team Liquid this week, even though I know we just talked about TL going undefeated. I like it because I do feel like they're having to go to another country for some money match scrims was something that might have benefited them a lot, but it might also
Yeah.
have thrown them off. Like they had to do all this travel, they're coming back. It's everybody else has been able to hang out and scrim each other. Admittedly, it's likely to have been worse scrim practice, but I do feel like that is something that I believe adds a little bit more chaos to the prediction equation than otherwise. And so I actually think that it's kind of funny because you may be right that Dig has a chance of beating TL this weekend. I think it has more to do with TL and what they've been up to versus what is going on with Dig. Not to say that Dig, it could be a little bit of a mixture of both. Maybe Dig has gotten better. I think if it ends up happening, it will be more because we're looking at it and being like, oh man, what happened to TL? Versus us being like, yo, Dig just crushed Team Liquid. They look so good. So we'll see what ends up happening there. I honestly, as much as I like the take, and I'm happy we pulled it because I think it is something that we should be talking about going into the matches this weekend, I have no fucking clue. Like, really what matters is how they spent the last 3 weeks, and we have no data on that. And so if you are correct and they were able to figure everything out, that's fine. But if you told me they just, like, sunk even deeper into the pits of despair as their scrims continue to be messy and they started, like, yelling at each other, I would also believe that. So I think if the take is, here's what I will take your take and position my own caller, which is this weekend is when we figure out if Dignitas is going to be relevant on Summer Split or not. Because if they show up and they just get shit on by Team Liquid, I think it's time to pack up the bags on Big Dig Summer, I believe is the nomenclature that we've been using on Hotline League.
Yeah.
And if they look competitive and we are like, okay, this break meant a lot, because if they can't have figured it out during last, what was it, 27 weeks of break between since the last end of Summer Split, then like we're not gonna be, then they're not gonna have figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember when they left. It's been so long.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that. I also think that that's exactly right in terms of if they don't win, if they don't perform well versus TL, I think that they tilt off the face of the earth.
I don't think that. I think it's a little bit unfair. I would hang it up if they lose like to NRG, and I mean that's a couple weeks away, but like that's real concern to me because at least Dig, like if they're like that'd be them not being able to punch below their weight class.
I mean, don't you have to hang it up? I assume if they lose to NRG, they might be out of playoffs.
No way. It's a 16 playoff and Immortals Shopify in the league.
I think they have to retire if they lose to Energy, I thought. But
no, that's not the case.
I forgot that Immortals and Shopify are both there to give them the boost.
I mean, again, I will give teams like a little bit of a clean slate coming out of the break because I think it is a good point, like how you used it. And I do think that Dig were in, again, those batch of 3 teams of how they used it. I'm also curious if we see any impact on TL and FlyQuest given what they did over the break versus the teams that stuck around. If we see like a different meta emerge, or if we see like maybe TL and FlyQuest look really good compared to the pack, or maybe they don't. Like that could be interesting. So that's definitely something to look out for, or it was something that I'm looking out for given the next week of games. For Dig though, I mean, I really don't think regular season matters that much for this team. I think they just need to figure it out for best of fives. I'm gonna be honest. I don't like want to write off regular season entirely, but
you don't
this
think
is a
that like
team
if they show up this weekend and they just get shit on after all this time to prepare, you're not worried for them?
No, I mean, if it's as bad as it is against FlyQuest, I'd be a bit worried, but I still think really highly of TL. They have to beat, for me, FlyQuest or C9 to make Worlds. I think the FlyQuest win was almost so bad that you can write it off, or the loss was so bad against FlyQuest that you can almost write it off. I'd be more worried if I'm not able to beat the teams below me that I'm expected to beat, which would be NRG. So.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, they are really good players, and I really hope they are competitive. Like even if they lose to Team Liquid,
it'd be really fun
this weekend. I hope that it is in like a 3-game match or something, or at the very least, like they're like, oh wow, Dignitas did solve a lot of stuff over the break. But I don't know. I guess in practical terms, yes, Cubby, you are right that they still have a lot of time even after this weekend. But man, it does feel like they looked so messy before, and if they were given all this time and they still look like they're a mess, like start to worry that premise. You know what? All right, this phrase gets thrown around a ton, and maybe this is a bad idea to put it forward, but like they are kind of a super team, right?
Oh, okay. So I think that Dig being good and competitive for me is great for the league. Because if this were 2, 3, 4 years ago, I think you'd say yes. That's not the case. But I think it's really fun, the fact that none of these players who a couple years ago would have been a super team are now on this team and trying to fight the top of the pack or like the next generation of LCS players. Yeah, I think it's actually super fun.
That is fair. Here's it's funny because I think I'm seeing Twitch chat react to my statement. I feel like they're like a 2024 super team. Like they are definitely. You would never call this. I think even you would not even call them a super team 3 years ago, because the super teams we had 3 years ago were like, we brought Perks over fresh off of his, being the best mid laner, or not mid laner, but being one of the best European players for ever. And so whatever. But in terms of the LCS, and where we are from a budgetary standpoint and all that stuff, and like they have brought in a bunch of all-stars to this, and as much as people hate Jensen, like the guy's pretty good. So I don't know. I guess it depends on your definition of super team, but I feel like by where the league has come in 2024, I do feel like they're on the verge of that in terms of what their roster construction was, right? If you just look at the idea was basically like, okay, we'll take a rookie and then we'll shove them in with a bunch of these like really big names, big LCS names, perhaps not big LoL esports names. That's what it looks like. So anyway, thanks so much, caller, for your take. This has been a fun discussion. Anything else you want to say here at the end or shout out?
Yeah. So on the narrative side, I think, like, I'm just pointing out some things that I think would be good narratively. The other thing I think would be good narratively is you guys have connections with the LCS teams. Get one of them to recruit the Shy. Make them pay him like $5 million. You will save the LCS in 1,000 ways.
Versus 2021.
Yo,
right.
I love it.
Let's
get the Shy. All right?
Not
okay.
2021.
We have whale hunting. We have whale hunting for Ari skins. Now we have whale hunting for X-Great LPL players and champions. We need the Shy. And that's how we get Casual to co-stream LCS.
You get Casual viewership. You get K-pop viewership. You get every kind of viewership. You get like the people who like old top players in the LCS. LCS loves recruiting people who won Worlds before. We love that shit.
I mean, this might be the last year of the LCS, so I'm not even sure if we can do this next year.
Oh, not like this.
Why does everyone freak out when I say that? It's true. We don't know if they're quite... I don't know why more people don't talk about the fact that we're not sure if the LCS is going to exist next year as a brand.
Keep the brand, please.
I know. I hope they keep it. I agree, but I feel like everyone should be freaking out about this so that Riot feels a lot of pressure to make sure that they do keep it.
All right, thanks, guys.
Goodbye, caller. Thank you. Catch you next time. All right. I think we can grab another caller, and I'll do some shout-outs here.
All right, let's do it.
Thank you to... Where were we? Magnarius, Postman, OFWG Sam, Director Donut, Mama Tommy, Smirk, Goat Cheese, Please, Kanoke, Linus Calling, Badger Yar, Pilgrim Panda, Haru for 2 years, PP Doc, Elias, and Yoser and B Bella. And then over on YouTube, Bob and George gifted a membership. Power Surge, thanks for the membership. And Project Beats, thanks for the membership. By the way, I think in the next, well, definitely within the next 2 weeks, we're going to be doing a members-only video about how I get sponsors and the way that I go about it, just sort of like the sponsor side of TGI business for those that are interested in that. We did this thing, we're doing it over on YouTube now, where members get to vote on a topic for a member-only video every month, and this is the video. We tend to do them as more videos that I know would not perform well within the YouTube algorithm if I made them on their own, but that some people who are, hardcore viewers on the channel or watch a lot of stuff might be interested in. So that's coming soon. Either way, we've got Icebreaker here. Icebreaker, where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm calling from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Indianapolis, Indiana. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah, so my take was after watching the NACL money matches 2 weekends ago, I'm convinced now that Fearless should be the standard for all multi-game series going forward in any pro League of Legends tournament. I think matches will be more entertaining. I think it solves a lot of the balance issues that the game has right now. And I think it will just make pro players better over time in general. And I realize that's a lot, so I can elaborate on
please,
any
honestly,
role.
and I mean this legitimately, please convince me of this, because I have not been super strong against it, but I have been skeptical of it. And so I would love for you to convince me of this, because I don't know, I feel kind of weird.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with matches being more entertaining. So I went through and the last week of the LCS, and I charted all the heroes that got played. There were 34 champions, which is 20% of the league roster, because there's 167 champions out right now. In 8 games in the NACL, 52 champions got played, so 18 more champions got played in total. And I got to watch the lane matchup of Lulu into Kennen, which is not something I ever thought I'd see.
Oh God, not that game.
It didn't end well, but it was probably the game I was most excited about coming out of draft, because that's a lane I've never seen before. Instead of watching Corki Trist again, so I guess that was kind of my 1 point for that. In terms of solving balance issues, I think kind of every patch there's a couple champions. Like this patch, it's Corki Tristana that everyone plays. And if the teams decide to both pick those in the first game, you don't have to deal with that for the rest of the series. And I think that forces players, to kind of move on to my next point, to become better, because they can't just play the meta. They really need to actually diversify their champ pool and understand why champions are being picked in certain scenarios, and would just cause them to, I think, just develop better fundamentals for the game in general.
So let me question a couple of the assumptions here. One, why does not playing to the meta make a player better? I feel like you could make the argument that being able to figure out what is strongest on a patch and honing your skills on that and learning how to play that is a skill that is represented at least as much as being able to play a variety of champions. And I feel like oftentimes we see people punished for their inability to keep up with the meta or to adapt to the meta, or not having, being strong on certain champions and not strong on others. So, why do you think that is, a superior version of skill?
Well, I think, like you said, meta is, figuring out the strongest thing and honing your craft on it. And if, Corki and Trist are removed, well, then the meta just becomes whatever is next strongest. So, you're always going to have layers of what becomes most powerful that's available in the draft. And maybe what's most powerful after, those two marksmen becomes control mages. And then you need a mid laner who can both play marksman and control mages. And so like that's kind of where I come from with this.
So it just
Like
rewards versatility over.
yeah,
Yeah. I just feel like you see the same thing in the current meta in the current system where when the meta shifts to, for instance, control mages, you get rewarded for being able to do that, whereas a lot of players who can't adapt fast enough, it's like, oh, last patch it was good for this team, and then this team falls off because they were kind of quote unquote carried by the patch or something along those lines. You know what I mean? So I feel like you see that represented in the way that the game is played right now versus, if you were just able to sort of ignore these swings and just have a list of like 5 different champions you're good at. I don't know. That is one of the areas where I'm not sure if I agree with like the assumption that like being able to ignore what is meta is indicative of skill. The other question I have is like, what was it you said? Kennen versus Tristana?
Lulu top.
Lulu
Lulu top.
Kennen
Yeah.
Lulu. So
Yeah.
like, is that a better viewing experience? Like, am I more excited to watch games whenever 2 players I think are really good are forced into this like
There's a shine
kind of
to it,
absurd
Travis.
situation?
You know,
What do you say,
I
Cubby?
think it was better because it was NACL and it wasn't LCS. And at the end of the day, it was, more of a developmental game. So I think if, people were pulling out those kind of lanes in LCS games, I think they would deservedly get flamed for it. But I think I more just mean like I got to see a lane dynamic that I've never seen before watching League. And I'm not saying that that has to happen like every series, but for the chance for something like that to come out, I don't think exists in the LCS, but I think it does exist with Fearless.
Okay,
I think
let
the
me.
fun.
Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cubby. Icebreaker. Let me, for the sake of argument, I'm going to get flamed for this because people are going to think that I'm like seriously promoting this. But for the sake of argument, let's say I put all the top laners in a pool and I put all the mid laners in a pool, all the champions, and then I just randomed out of those pools for each of these players. Like in some sense that was the system, right? Where you just get assigned a random top laner. In some sense, that meets both of your requirements, right? Where we're seeing increased champion diversity and you're rewarding players for being able to play like a wider set of champions. How, at a certain, but I think we would all agree, for instance, that would be a ridiculous system. So, like, at what point in time does it become less about it being novel to see a strange lane matchup versus when it feels really good?
Yeah, I think my point with the like they're not ignoring the meta. When they, you have Fearless and you need to have a deeper champion pool, it's more just like you would need to always have, let's say, Tristana in your bag because she's always a pickable champ in mid lane because she has that, the escape with her W, she has the R. Like she just has a good kit for mid lane in general. So it's not that necessarily people would be shifting between different champions. It would just be that there would be a strong like pick for that patch, but then underneath that, like, I mean, Tristana comes back every so often when Riot buffs her. Like she doesn't become a garbage champion out of the gate, but she just becomes less playable because her stats get slightly worse. But if the champion that beats her on stats goes away, like I think all the mid laners should know how to play Tristana at this point. So I guess that's kind of my more my point on the champion pool expanding. And I think it's not that I want to see just weird and wacky lanes all the time, but have players who are more willing to try and counterpick harder and not just play like a neutral lane matchup just to scale into the late game. Like I want to see players try to punish their opponents more so than just kind of handshaking a lot of lanes, which I think seems to happen a lot. So that's kind of what I meant by that.
Gotcha.
So we're pretty much a fan of the novelty of it, right? I will say, like, this is obviously the league I've covered. Last split we had a fearless format where you couldn't play a champion again on your own team, and now you cannot play any champion that's been picked. I would much rather have the latter, and the one that we have this split. I think that we saw a lot of handshakes in what you're describing last split, and it led to not exactly what the format's going for. I think that the real argument to be made is, if this is a dev league, does Fearless help you develop faster? Because there is something to be said that, like, if you want to be a truly great pro player, you do have to survive patches and meta changes. Like, that's part of the game. But if you want to be a truly great pro player, you also have to know the nuances of those matchups. And do you learn those if you are going to get straight up less reps? Like, is it valuable to play 5 games over Nectin versus Cassante? I in practice, if you're doing it right, I would argue yes. Like, there are timers and things that you need to be able to do consistently in that matchup to expect, and figuring out, like, when and how to punish. That's going to be harder to figure out if you're only playing that a couple times a week. So do you get stuff out of the novelty? I do think that, like, it's already been shared that international tournaments are at least going to have some form of Fearless. I don't know how aggressive they're going to be.
So the first split and the first tournament will have Fearless, is what they've announced.
I think it's the LPL format, though, where if you pick a champ, your team can't play it again. I'm not sure. I don't know if we know in the chat, but that does make a difference to me. For me, like, selfishly, I cover all the games. I think it's more fun having Fearless, like, just because I go through so many games. I do appreciate the novelty of having weird matchups, and I learn along with, like, some of the viewers sometimes, but, like, what's going on. Like, I didn't know exactly how Lee Sin versus Aatrox top played out. I watched that matchup today. Like, I found that interesting, right? But like, the real question for me, especially in this format, is, does it actually help players develop? I don't know. Now, does it also, can it like create a more entertaining product? I guess we'll see when everyone has it this upcoming split. But I am at least glad that we have someone that, like, enjoyed the format and found it fun. And I will say that the Lulu versus Kennen top was also fun because it was Jenkins playing into Kennen, and Jenkins did play LCS and is a known Kennen player on the server. So that is his counter pick. And he did get 2 solo kills, but TL were up 6k gold and lost because Lulu is fucking worthless with gold. So, especially with the items that he built. So,
Cubby, if Mark came to you today and said, Cubby, I have decided I can't make this decision. I need you right now to make it for me. You've experienced this all split long or all year long. Do we bring this to the LCS? What do you do?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You do.
Yeah. I actually think yes. I would go full Fearless, though. I think that, like, I say this also under the premise. This is my cop out. Watch how good politically I am here, Travis.
Sure.
Mark said that he's down to swap formats and play around with formats, and Riot's already doing that this upcoming split, and I would continue that by having Spring Split be full Fearless. Also, I'm really curious. We just had our first best of 5, where in the current format we have, it was in OQs, but you lose bans in games 4 and 5, so they free up champions. So game 5, there's actually no bans if you go to 5-game Fearless. So, like, if Talia's banned all series, all of a sudden game 5 you can first pick Talia, right? I'm really curious to see how that plays out, because I really don't know. It's like, it's going to be interesting. We had a game go to game 4 where you lose your second round of bans. So you only get 3 bans for the game. And that's like old school draft.
Huh. I mean, I don't feel, I think a lot of chat or viewers of the show feel like I am like a fearless hater. And I feel strongly about a lot of things. I don't feel particularly strong about this. And one way or the other, I am a little skeptical. But, like, this is not something... I felt bad about the format that we're in summer right now because I felt like viewership will suffer. I don't necessarily know what the impact will be of viewership in this. It might go up even. And also from just a competitive standpoint, I think as long as other regions are doing it, I'm not worried about us doing it. And so I think it's probably fine. I think the one major reason why it doesn't make sense to do this is because this is not how League of Legends is played. So
It can be though.
is your like? Could you
I mean, if they
elaborate?
change the rules, it's how it's played for that split. Like that's. I mean, that's
No. I mean like.
Oh, solo queue.
So every like the way that
Yeah, yeah.
99.99% of people play League of Legends is not fearless. And so one of the things I think that appeals to a lot of League fans is the idea of, oh, I'm going to watch this and I'm going to figure out how I want to play, and I'm going to see like what the meta is, and I want to see people on the best champs that are available on this patch, and then I'm going to go do that. And I think a lot of us pundits who do not play League that much are more open to this because we're like, oh, this will make a more exciting product. And probably there's a lot of people who watch this show who do not play League that much, and for them, they might be like, this is really cool. But I think there are just a lot of people that tune in to, and this is an assumption, I don't have data in front of me, but I would hazard a guess that there are a lot of people that just tune into esports regularly because they like getting to see what they are doing, later on that evening in full HD, by the best players and that type of thing. And so you are at that point in time dramatically divorcing the sport from the way that the game is played. And I guess here, Cubby, this is my olive branch to traditional sports fans. Let me ask you a sports question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a precedence for this in traditional sports? Because I feel like there's a lot of like soccer, recreational soccer. There's a lot of baseball, a lot of these things that there's like high school football, all this stuff that is very much in lockstep, I assume, with traditional sports. Are there examples that you know of in traditional sports where the sort of broadcast games or the top tier versions of that sport are dramatically different from the way it's played by, the average participant?
Not dramatically, but there are differences. A lot of it, though, is like to kind of help youth sports. But the way that sports will patch their game is they have the owners get together and they vote to make changes on the league. So, like, football has changed their kickoff system of late, American football, to make sure it's safer. Because, like,
Greg says there's a pitch clock in MLB.
Yeah, there's a pitch clock now in the MLB, and games are like lightning fast, which is ridiculous. Like MLB games used to be like 3 hours plus. Now you get a game just finished up like the other week in an hour 58. It really changed the game. Like some pitchers are way worse with it or not. So, like, do you change the game? I don't. How that's imposed at every level is they kind of figured out because again, you are dealing with like youth players and people that aren't pros. So like I think the best example is like. Football, there's a different football in college football versus pro football. The college football is slightly smaller. And that also goes for, like, I think basketball. There are different size basketballs as you go through youth basketball versus pro basketball. But again, that has to deal with, like, your actual athletics, like what they expect for you to be. So, yeah.
Can I chime in on the
Yeah, of
sports
course.
take just a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. I can talk about football a little bit. Like American football. So like at the high school and the college and the NFL level, like the offense you're running will get like progressively more complicated. And like only in the last 20, 30 years has like an offense that has been popular in college actually also been popular in the NFL. So like I guess you could call it the type of offense being run, the meta of the level of play.
But that's a meta change, right? Not like a dramatic format difference.
Yeah, but like I guess one of the things that I was also maybe going to include in my take is like a wide receiver who's someone who catches the ball, like coming out of college, if they're known as a really good route runner, so they have a lot of different routes they can run on the field, they usually tend to attract a lot of interest in the draft because teams know that they can put them on the field and they can tell him to run whatever route they need and he will do it because he knows how to do it. So he has like a bag of tools that has already come. So regardless of like what offense is being run, like regardless of what the team needs, he can that player can do something for them.
Yeah, I know what you mean, right? Where
That's
you're
a decent
bringing it back to the
example, actually.
versatility thing.
Yeah.
It is still what I was focusing in on was the way that competitive League of Legends would be played would be very different than the way that like regular League of Legends is played.
Yeah.
And I think that is like the major difference here that I do worry a little
People
bit
pick
about.
whatever the hell they want in solo queue though too. Like it's a lot less meta in solo queue than it is in pro. So that game's already like really different, you know.
Yeah, and like the other thing I'll add on the sports thing, like if going back to the wide receiver thing, if some guy burns you deep over the field on a deep route, like you're gonna be way, way, way more careful about that in the future, and like that won't really be an option as much. So to me, that's kind of like the way I see Fearless is instead of having the teams need to cover that every time then and like maybe ban that champion, then that other player, he got one game out of a 3-game series by that deep ball, and now he's got to actually prove in another game at least that he's the better player. Like I guess that's kind of my main argument for Fearless at that point.
Yeah, I'll wrap up sort of my position on this topic by saying that I know this is esports, and so everyone has a ton of opinions, and I'm looking at chat, and somebody says Travis is spitting right now. Other people are like, this is wildly completely wrong, or there's other examples. I just, at the very least, as we head into whatever this next era of League is with Fearless being in the toolkit, I think it is worth all of us considering, and Riot and the teams, etc., like philosophically, how much do we want to align the sport with the gameplay experience of people? Like if folks, I get that people are saying like, and to your point, Cubby, like people do already pick random stuff in solo queue, but they're picking random stuff from the same pool of champions, right? Like they do not go into a game and have 10 champions or however many you would have in this situation. Sometimes you include bans and all that stuff. It is not, that stuff is not grayed out on the board for them. So I just think it is like an interesting philosophical conversation and worth people figuring out, like, do we really care if the sport is wildly different, and then how many more changes are we willing to make before we feel like it's too far away? Icebreaker, though, thank you for the call. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, I'll shout out a couple things. One, I'm gonna shout out Brett Coleman. He's an incredible NFL YouTuber and where I get a lot of my knowledge from. So shout out to him. And then for NACL, well, just shout out NACL in general. It's been a lot of fun starting to watch that and enjoying it. But add channel memberships.
Who's your favorite NACL team?
Oh, at the moment, I think DSG.
Oh,
I mean, I don't know.
You're not a fan of the undefeated team?
Nah, I like an underdog.
Oh,
I love an underdog.
That's funny because Brett Coleman's podcast is Underdog Fantasy Football, so
that's
accurate.
That's true. Yeah,
accurate.
Yeah. No, it's bootleg football. Yeah.
It's not underdog. It's bootleg.
Did
you just correct Cubby? Did Cubby just embarrass himself?
I think he guessed it on it recently.
No, well, their bootleg football podcast is his, and he's sponsored by someone who may a fantasy company that may share the name of something mentioned earlier that I won't mention on the show.
Oh, okay.
So shout out Prize Picks.
Either way,
nice.
Yeah, I was just gonna. I appreciate your shouting at NACL. I'm also really excited because Cubby, I'm correct, right? Brandon Sanders,
Dragonsteel's
still undefeated.
Yeah, they've been really good.
I hope that feels good for Brandon, because I know I think he was happy to come in on it, but also I know that he was encouraged to do so by members of his team. So, it's hey, the team that you're sponsoring is undefeated. That's pretty cool. Anyway, thank you so much. Oh, go ahead, Icebreaker.
I was gonna say this was a really fun discussion. I had a great time. But then just for the NACL, add channel memberships, and I scrubbed through all of a VOD to find the champions picked, and I had to individually find each game. So maybe add timestamps too. That would be really cool.
As someone that goes through all the VOD reviews doing the same thing, I feel your pain.
Yeah. So, but awesome.
Icebreaker, they have no money for that, and maybe if they turn on channel memberships, they could.
Yeah,
I do have Twitch subs.
I don't use Twitch,
okay.
so So turn on channel memberships, and I'll support someone to go through and put timestamps on the videos.
Thank you.
So
See,
awesome. Yep.
there is a. So in the summer, we have the windows open because Kobe is less of a believer in AC. We use it sometimes, but there is a woman screaming in a different language and throwing things outside. I just heard something break as she's yelling, and it's all coming. So I don't know if that's getting picked up by the microphone right now, but if it does, I apologize. Out of my control.
If I'm you after Hotline League, I'm grabbing a drink and looking out my window. It sounds like some street entertainment
I think that
in the old days.
they're on a lower floor in my building, not
not good.
disclose too much information about.
Yeah, that's not good.
So I don't think I can see, unfortunately. I think it's like coming through window. And all right.
Fun times.
I just want to give a shout out to two people that we had subbed. One is Raging Pianist, who just resubbed for 6 months and has been subbed for 48 months, so 4 years. Raging Pianist, thank you. Secondly, I believe a first-time sub or first-time gifted sub from Travis Feet Picks Collector. Yes, this is first gift sub in the channel. So, listen, the name is a little sus, but also, as I mentioned earlier, we are down a ton of subs because of the break. So I'll take any sub I can get, and if it's from that person, then I would say, hey, check my tweet that I put out today where I'm wearing flip-flops in front of the EV9, and add that to your collection. Anyway, Human Boy is here. Human Boy, where are you calling from?
Minnesota as well. You're getting a lot of these tonight, dude.
Yeah, do you guys know each other? Because I believe they said like the sewers of Minnesota, and I know that you're representing Skaven from Warhammer in your name, so I don't know if they're like you're both Skaven in the sewers of Minnesota.
I refuse to comment on how many of us are down here in the sewers.
All right, fair enough. Fun fact: my video producer Drew comes from Minnesota, so
it's a good place.
For some reason, is it? I don't know. I went to the airport there. I found it pretty mid. What do you want to talk about on the show?
My take is that Travis is a great agent for Kia and makes me actually consider buying one of their cars. When previously I was a Honda man, so keep it up, Kia.
That's fantastic. Glad to hear it. What is your actual take?
Okay. So we're about to see a big narrative shift in that people will stop dogging on NA, and LEC is actually going to be the fourth best region this year because they're in some serious trouble coming into Worlds.
So are you implying that LCS will be the third best region?
Yeah, we're about to smash these fools.
Okay. Why didn't you just lead with LCS is going to be the third best region? Why does it have to become LEC is the fourth best region? I say that only because it feels like even in
negativity
our
rules,
triumph,
Travis.
We can't be like, hooray, we're getting better. We just have to be like, yeah, those fools across the ocean are getting worse.
To defend myself, I started by promoting Kia, but fair.
I know.
Second,
I appreciate that. I'm just saying. Okay, whatever. Cubby, why don't you lead the questioning on this?
All right. So the details behind the take is, even if we're not talking about the redacted event, I've been watching the LAC playoffs and they have some serious issues. I listen to the Euphoria podcast every week to kind of keep up on things, and I watch their games, and they're really hyping up Team BDS, Fnatic, and Mad to all be solid. Wait, not Mad, SK. And then you watch their games, and like, there's several situations, but I'll only go into just very briefly a couple. G2 5-man dives BDS's top laner, and their full health Zyra jungle post level 6, full mana, full everything, is sitting next to an alive dragon, sees the entire enemy team top, and completes backing to buy an amp tome. Oh wow, that was the world's most important amp tome. I don't know why you're not taking a free objective there. Then Team BDS later drafts Malphite Alistair versus a double 80 carry and a Seraphine top, and I swear every Malphite ultimate went onto a solo Maokai jungle, and it's like, okay, this team just has terrible fundamentals.
Yeah, I think the Malphite pick was fine, but it was really poorly executed.
Yeah.
Just your phrasing of "I watched the playoffs and they have some serious issues." Just yeah, that was pretty funny. Anyway, continue about these serious issues that you're witnessing.
Yeah, watching SK versus Fnatic, there's very little team cohesion for either team here. It kind of just looks like a weird ARAM where
Really, I thought Fnatic was at least like somewhat put together. This I don't think their play was like too bad, honestly.
ugh, it hasn't been great. Giant X somehow took them to 3 games, and Giant X is also a disaster.
They played a really good game one. I mean, I know I'm with you. I think LEC is like a weaker region right now. And I like G2 keeps on winning, so it's really hard to like throw out the one team region. But
Yeah.
I don't want to take away from like too much of the play we're seeing. Like Giant X had some issues as a team in regular season, but like that one game they played really clean. And it's not like Giant X weren't getting leads in the LEC. It's just that they weren't turning them into wins. So like when Jackie's like this Varus pick that he's been playing a lot of, like it's easy to get caught in side lane, but like when they kind of switch things up, like he has been really committed to playing these 80 mids. Not all of LEC has actually been playing that from the meta, which I think has made it look kind of weird in a way. Like really sticking to a lot of mage mids still, which I don't think should be played in the meta right now. And then like when they miss execute, it's bad. I mean, there was some of the like you haven't even gotten to like the really unacceptable things that happen where it's like Niski walking up with a minion wave and dying to a turret, like when he was Ziggs, instead of like letting the wave hit it. And then also like the BDS MDK series, which was just like
Wild.
that was the series. I mean,
That
yeah,
that was one of the series of all time.
yeah. I mean, I wasn't watching the games live, and I barely checked my phone this weekend. And I looked at my phone like once, like during one of the rounds I was playing. I just saw everyone malding about this series, and I was like, "What the hell is going on? Like, there's no way like this can warrant the malding." And I watched the series last night to prep to the like for the jungle, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this actually warrants the malding."
No, yeah, it was not good. And it's
It was
like
bad. It was bad.
going back to Euphoria, Team BDS is supposedly one of their better teams, and I'm not seeing
Yeah,
it.
they are.
Now to get to like the more positive side of the take, Caps is solo carrying this region right now. He is insane on Tristana, and we saw that versus FlyQuest at Redacted, where Quad actually held up against him pretty well when he had Tristana, and then as soon as Caps got it, Cap 1v9 both those games. So Caps is still insane, but I think Team Liquid, as a whole team, is better than just Caps. I think Liquid's doing really well right now. And then I think FlyQuest and Cloud9 are behind Liquid, but not that far behind. But I think the problem for EU is going to be TL is going to outperform G2, whatever their matchups are, because maybe they don't run into each other. But TL is going to have a better performance than G2. And then FlyQuest and C9, who I think will be other two Worlds reps, are going to demolish whoever the other two are. And I think the conversation will finally shift to, NA leveled up. And I think it might, not to go too long, I know you hate it when people ramble. I think our coaches take things a lot more seriously now. Like, Reaper and Spawn are both, in all their interviews or any content that they can do, you tell they're very serious and they're like, we have a system and we're going to treat this like a job and we're going to go at it every day. Where it feels like the West in general kind of has this laissez-faire, like, oh, it's just a game and let's do our own thing kind of vibe, like just a bit chill. And I feel like Spawn and Reaper really bring the hammer down.
Right. It's hard for me to chime in on the LEC gameplay issues, though I do have questions there. I will just say the last part there I feel really confused by, because I don't feel like there was ever a point in time where people have been like, oh, whatever, it's just a game. Like, people have always been, in all my years covering this, super pissed when they lose, super frustrated. You know, you've heard rumors of coaches punching holes in walls. Like, it's been dramatic for a long time. So
That's fair.
I think there's a community sentiment led by, North American haters that are like, oh yeah, the LA Hollywood lifestyle just lets these guys hang out on the beach or whatever. But like, it has always been very difficult.
If I could chime in, just because I didn't mean that, and I'm sorry it came off that way.
No, you're good.
It is like when the team loses and you get the team interview, right? The coach is usually like, oh, the boys tried their best and we got some stuff to work on in practice. But you can tell like Spawn and Reaper have this different intensity about them where like they are furious and you could just tell the guys are going to get it as soon as that interview is done. And it's like, I really appreciate that from these coaches, and I feel like they're just sweating every day for their teams.
Sure.
So
I it's fair to feel inspired by what you're hearing from these guys.
yeah.
I think that Spawn. I'm really glad that Spawn's coaching in LCS. I think this guy's been way too good for way too long.
Yeah, dude, long time coming
as a coach. So I think like that's an upgrade. And I mean, you throwing Reaper in there. Reaper was also an old LCS coach, so like in a way, like he was old guard too, and I think he was held in decently high regard back then as well.
Oh yeah,
I mean, Reaper, his departure from the league was, the rumor was that he was not doing much for the split that he left C9 or whatever, that he was kind of phoning it in. So like, it's a little. I'm happy if he is back and he's going hard on it now, but like that was always the behind the scenes narrative, which I think people talked about publicly for a while afterwards too.
Yeah, that definitely made it to me, and like I came in after, like his splits when he left, pretty much. I
do want.
I don't know.
Go ahead,
think,
Cubby. I have a question about
like
LEC.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty easy right now to say that like LCS's top teams are better than the LEC top teams. I mean, it also is made easier by the fact that we have toppled EU and the head-to-head matchups of late, like TL taking down Fnatic twice. Like, it's pretty easy. And, I mean, FlyQuest gave G2 a run for their money. I think that we're all really hoping to see TL versus G2. I don't know, though. I don't know, like, if there's, like, systemic reasoning for that. Or, like, I don't know what happened to EU either. It feels like a lot of the old EU guard left. And just this new crop of players, like, this happens in sports sometimes. Like, people talk about, now it's my turn to make a sports reference. See, Travis made one, so I'm actually behind one, which is a new one for this episode.
I'm zoning out.
Like, people talk about, like, generations of players that come up and come through and how you kind of have to mold and sharpen each other. I feel like this LCS generation is, A, more established, and B, has more legacy names than the new LEC generation that's coming up. And the new generation of players in LEC, like, they have yet to, like, really get their feet in and mold. Because there are some newer players that I'm pretty excited about. Like, I think Irrelevant's really good. The top laner for SK, I think he's really fun. And some of the imports they had like ended up being really good. Like, SK's team is good because they got like Rahel, who's playing well, and Ice has been really good for BDS, like stepping in as well. I just think that like I want to see some longevity and try and like see these guys like kind of help keep on leveling each other up. So it feels like the only thing that has really been consistent has been G2 and some of their staff behind the scenes, which has been buffed up by Duffman, who I know was he's held in very high regard both here in NA with his time in C9 and now over in G2. But I haven't like really seen this newer batch of players that's come up from ERLs like really kind of grind it out to help all level each other up to actually be competitive with G2. Because again, in the past, like the Fnatic teams, like they had some longevity pieces with some newer pieces that would fight the G2 teams who were pretty much all longevity. But I think League has seen like a lot of change and turnover in the last couple of years. Part of it's because of the talent they have in ERLs and wanting to give them shots, but I don't think it's like been well enough established. So I don't know. I kind of want to give LAC a little bit of time, and I do want to be wary. Like I don't want to be one that falls victim of the pendulum shifting of like, oh, we either have to shit on NA or EU because we're a Western League fan, and one's bad or the other is bad. And right now, EU is bad. And while I agree with that, I also like want to look to see if I can find nuance and like reasoning for that. I think one for me is definitely, I think that the LCS players are more established for top down, and I think that's actually pretty reasonable.
I think this will be. I'm not trying to start a fight here with Europe. I'm putting out what I acknowledge to be like a Reddit user level take, and I'm going to pose it as a question, which is, do you guys think that historically, when people were like LEC is good, it was because of anything other than Fnatic G2? Because I feel like, as a casual viewer of LEC, like especially when you looked at their international results, you basically had Fnatic and G2.
Well, there's Origin too in the past.
They always had way back in the day, yes.
H2K as well.
Sure,
like there was more precedent for EU before that to then be like considered good. So like they were making semis, having multiple teams make semis, even if like H2K was beating Albus Nox.
Sure.
And then they had two teams
let me clarify.
Finals, right?
In the I feel like people were like, yo, for a long time, people were like LEC and LCS both bad, LEC slightly better. Then with the rise of G2 in like 2018, 2019, and also with Fnatic making finals and all that stuff, you started to get to this point where people are like, yo, Europe is good. Like, they are competitive oftentimes with LCK, LPL. They are maybe like a step behind, and then LCS was just like bad. And I feel like if you think about, for me, I feel like the years where people were like, yo, LEC is actually really good, and it was like this existential crisis that the LCS had where it's like, okay, now we're dead last. That was during the years of like Fnatic G2 being good. And I feel like what has changed the most during that time, or now, is that Fnatic has just not been as good as they have been in the past, and so it has pushed a very clear one-team narrative for LEC.
Yeah.
That is sort of how I feel on the outside, but feel free to tell me I'm wrong.
No, I mean, you're kind of right. Like, there were also challengers, like the Mad Lions and Rogue teams, like led by Humanoid and Larson, that were pretty decent, but they just didn't perform. What I will say is I think that now the pendulum has switched. I actually think that, like, NRG toppling G2 is, I feel like, the start of, the reality shift, where I don't know if NRG was a better team. They for sure were on that day, but G2 was still very good in that tournament. I do think that EU was, like, kind of high on themselves, on their own supply, and kind of riding off the coattails of what they did in prior years for, like, after pretty much the Caps Perks team split up. I think that, like, there were a couple years in there where EU was like, everyone's like, oh yeah, EU is like for sure third, when it was actually closer. And they had the results in their favor, so it's not like NA could prove it, but I didn't feel like there was like a chasm between the two regions the way I kind of felt like it was in like 18, 19, right?
Yeah.
So I do feel like it kind of feels like it all came crashing down. And I also feel like the trajectories of the broadcast affected this a little bit with COVID and like how LEC was perceived. So I think like there were some outside factors that people like didn't really factor in, like looking back.
Yeah.
I like that take a lot, Cubby, that sentiment is very much wrapped up together with broadcast or product sentiment. And so when Europe was doing really well and their broadcast was quote unquote shitting on LCS and LCS was not doing well, you just feel like as a fan, oh man, LCS just sucks compared to LEC. Like we've got this bad product, this bad broadcast, and our games are bad and our players are bad and everything is bad. And it is probably a good point that like it is not, perhaps it is not surprising that we are seeing the Reddit post talking about how like the LEC broadcast is really bad now at the same time as we're seeing sentiment around the players and teams be dramatically decreased. I actually really like that point a lot, Cubby. That's good.
And if I can hop back in, if you're talking about the pendulum swinging, like this isn't just Reddit analysis. They were talking about the players of the LEC were talking about it on the Euphoria podcast. They're not liking the new format where, because if you form a new team, you have 2 weeks, I think, of best of ones. And if you're in the bottom two, you just get kicked out and you have like 2 months or something on the bench just watching. So if you try and bring in a new player and they get stage fright, well, there go half of your games before you're going to get knocked out. And the players are saying it's like, it's really hard to come together as a team. So then more and more orgs are going towards super teams. And then super teams don't have cohesion because like one of your veteran players wants to play this way, the other player wants to play this way, like Jensen and Inspired. But then it's like, well, you have no time to come together.
I can't speak on a lot of the ERL talent that comes up because I don't watch ERLs, but I do think that some of the LEC rosters I've seen like combined have been kind of atrocious roster building, I'll be honest. And I will say from a viewership perspective, I like the format. I like the fact that it's a single round robin best of one into earlier best of threes and teams get killed earlier on. I don't mind that, but for me also, like I think that that's a bit of an excuse for teams being like, we don't come together fast enough. Well, if you're bad, you get more time outside the game where like in theory you need more practice and you have more time to come together if like you're actually like good at, being able to use that time as a coach and as a team. So I also I think it's kind of on the teams. Like if I'm a coach on a team, I want to have free time. I want to have time where I can structure it for myself. and actually work on improving. I feel like I can't do that as much with stage games. And if that's like their opinion, I feel like that's a fundamental like wrong approach to like how they're like looking at the format too. And I will say that part of it, I do have some mercy for like the players and coaches, because I do think that sometimes teams do force changes or try and solve it with changes instead of like actually try and work through it. So I think that's like kind of two-pronged there, but yeah.
Base take.
Thanks so much, caller, for your take. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, so I actually have something kind of cool coming up. Do you know? Of course, you know Total War, Mr. Travis, man.
Yes.
This Saturday we will be on Total War Official, like the YouTube channel. I will be casting the finals of our Warpstone Cup. It's been a tournament. I've been a year and a half in the making with CA, the company that made Total Warhammer 3. So if you want to check out the top 4 in the world going at it with some best of 5s on Total War Official, pop in Saturday. I'll be casting.
That's cool. That's super cool. Yeah, I needed to get back into Total War Warhammer 3 because I remember I was not as big of a fan of the campaign in 3 as in 2, but Kelby and Fenron have both been telling me that it's been really good. So as soon as I feel like I have some free time to spend. The problem with that game is that I open it and then I spend the next 40 hours of the week in it, and I'm trying to get a lot of stuff done these days, but I do want to check it out. So congrats, though, on casting. That's going to be fun. Hope you have a good time.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Take care, both of you.
Have a good one. Our last caller just shouted out Kia at the start of that, and I want to shout out Kia. All right. Ooh. We're going to talk about the EV9. So Kia, as my sponsor, is hooking me up with an EV9 for this week. I have to return it back to them, or actually they're coming to pick it up 1 week from today, and I love this car already. And I say that authentically, enthusiastically. Just getting into it, it was super cool. I drive a little sedan, I guess is what it's normally called, during most of my life, and getting in to check out this vehicle, it's so cool. I'm going to go a little off script for this. I don't know if this is within the talking points, but for a long time, I remember like back in college and stuff, Kias were kind of the car that you got whenever you just you wanted to get something and you wanted it to not necessarily cost you an arm and a leg, and you were kind of like, okay, well, yeah, it's a nice car, it's functional, but it's not. I got into this car, and this thing is awesome. Like, it is super comfortable. It's so nice. It's the EV9. I should say it's the GT line that they have. So it does have some of the more premium features, but it is so cool. The seats are incredibly comfortable. They have ventilation and heating, I think, in all rows, at the very least the first 2. The amount of just buttons and options all over the place to make this thing more easy to pilot, where like you're able to fold up the chairs from different in the back while you're sitting in the front seat if you're trying to get people in and out of the car. There's so much space. The whole user interface for the entertainment system is really awesome. It drives incredibly comfortably. I love the fact that it's electric. I'm going to be taking it out to Evo this weekend on a road trip with a couple of friends, and just being able to stop and charge along the way is super neat. We're going to do a vlog, or at least some vlog style content. We'll probably cut it up, and so I'll be able to show a little bit of it on future episodes of Hotline League and then some of the other content that I'm doing with them in the sort of ad spot, so that you guys can see some of the features, because I know I'm just sort of like spewing over how excited I am over the car in this conversation, but this thing is just super neat. You got to go take a look at the EV9. It's such a comfortable car. It is awesome. The technology in it is great, and I am really happy. This was actually their idea. When we were talking about doing the sponsorship, we were getting near the end, and we got word that the Kia client was like, hey, what if we gave Travis an EV9 to try for a week so that he actually gets like hands-on experience and can give it a try? And I'm so happy they did. And I wish that I could be like, hey, what if we just extended this for a couple weeks, because this is really cool. So I'm gonna be looking for reasons to hop in this vehicle all week long, and I'm gonna love every minute that I'm in it, because it is such a cool car. So either way, shout out to Kia for sponsoring the show. everything I always say about how they're helping to make this content happen is still true. And all that, I just wanted to focus on how authentically and enthusiastically excited I am about this EV9. It has been such a cool vehicle. And if you have not checked out Kia in a while, or you have, even predispositions and from way back when on what Kia as a brand means, I highly encourage you to check out their new lineup, because especially the EV9 is just super cool. So anyway, we're getting back to this. PP Doc says, do you know mileage, battery capacity, and charging parameters? I know that mine is just below 300 miles on a charge right now. So Cubby's gone off to grab the next caller. Thank you to Trevor Monreal for the 41 months. Lit Drummer Boy for 48 months, 4 years. Thank you. Notorious Bubble for 35. And Project Beats, thank you for the membership over on YouTube. So, yeah. Super cool. Really enjoy all this. All right, we got our next caller here. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, my name is Andrew, and I'm calling from Little Rock, Arkansas.
Little Rock, Arkansas. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So my take is that the current LCS top 3 is the best top 3 of any LCS season.
Ooh.
So
Okay.
I think... do you want me to explain it?
No, yes. Go for it, please.
Okay. So I think TL has shown to be probably some of the best macro gameplay we've seen out of LCS teams. And of course, there's some international play to go alongside this. TL really had a shot to kind of win that whole tournament that we shouldn't talk about. And I think FlyQuest, although they had that not great showing at MSI, I think they're kind of innovative. I think they've done some different things. They've kind of shown that they're willing to test out different strategies, and they've been competitive against TL. And even I think both of those teams really have shown that they know how to push leads and close out games better than we've seen most LCS teams in the past. Though the C9, we don't really have much evidence for. I will admit, there's not much evidence that C9 has been is that elite, but at least from the pros episode, as well as Scrim rumors, C9 is considered number 2 and FlyQuest is 3rd. But yeah.
So, and you're saying like all history of the LCS?
Yeah. And caveat, I have only been watching since like 2019.
Okay. So that limits us about half of the history of the league.
Yes.
So maybe we could limit it down to half the history league, which will also make it more manageable.
No, I think it's more fun if we say it in all of its history.
Cubby's busy arguing in Twitch chat. But
No, we're good.
I think
I got the take.
All right.
I mean, I have to go back through some past LCS Leaguepedias to maybe formulate my take.
While you do that,
I will say there's a very strong top 3, and I don't know if top 3 is going to get broken. So I thought this was an interesting call to take, because I'm trying to think back to when we did have like very strong top 3, like very defined, right? So 2018 is what people were saying. Let's go look at 2018.
You're saying
2018 was
2019.
I was going to say 2018 was hella close in the standings. Okay, so 2019 we had TL at 14-4, C9 at 14-4, TSM at 13-5. FlyQuest was 9-9, and then we had
I don't want to go through all 5 years because we are already over time.
That was spring. I will say that summer was much closer. Because Clutch Gaming ended up making it out, and that was not expected. It was expected to be...
But does that mean that they're closer? I kind of feel like the reason why I am somewhat... Like, I think that it is plausible, this take, is because usually we don't have a grid 3rd team. I feel like normally you have 1 to 2 teams that are running the gambit, and then there's a pretty big fall off before you get to the 3rd. I think the reason why it might not be plausible is because I'm not convinced yet that FlyQuest is like really good. I think they could be, and I think they might be, but I don't feel like we have enough data on that. I also, we talked about this earlier. This format, I think, it is hard to compare best of threes to best of ones when you're talking about the sort of dominance of certain teams, because I do think there's a good chance that in the past, when we have felt like the league had like decent levels of parity, in a world where we were doing best of threes, we might not feel that way. So I think that part of the reason, caller, you might be looking at the splits coming to that conclusion is because the gaps just seem a lot bigger when you have best of threes where teams just end up looking more dominant than they would in normal situations where they're like maybe dropping a game here and there versus not.
Yeah, that's potentially true. I could see that, and I think the other thing though is just that how strong TL has been and their improvement has kind of been pretty linear. Well, not linear, but like they've grown at a pretty steady rate. And I don't think we've seen LCS teams compete as well internationally. Of course, we still have Worlds to go, and if the bottom falls out and all three crash at Worlds, this won't look so good. But I kind of find that hard to. I don't believe that will actually happen. Just because I think TL's been playing really well, and I think they're allowing the other two teams to kind of step up too. They kind of talked about in that pros episode how those three teams are basically just scrimming each other, at least for a little bit.
When you say the strongest three teams, you mean this in relation of if we sent these three teams to Worlds, it would be the strongest three teams we sent, or do you mean it versus the rest of the league?
Oh, like in comparison to the rest of the league, the strongest three? Well, it could be that, but I was thinking more like this would probably be the strongest three that we've sent as a region. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think part of that's because they are kind of like dusting the other five.
Well, I mean that makes the argument a lot easier because then I can just go back to Season 4 Worlds, which was probably the strongest teams we've sent, which has been a long time ago. But that was the year that we had C9 and TSM, and both were relatively competitive. I thought for me the way I interpreted your take was that it was the strongest top three teams we've had in LCS in the league itself, and frankly I'd agree, and I'd also say that while I think FlyQuest has had a hiccup or two and has yet to establish themselves as the clear top three, Travis, I still think they're a clear top three. I think their hiccups for me have come from Quad not being assimilated in the team yet, and I feel like Quad is putting up better performances as time goes on. So
you really feel like it's that easy to say that this is the best top three we've ever had?
I mean, I'm going
Cloud9
through, like,
is 3-0 right now off of beating Dig, IMT, and
I need to see more out of
Shopify.
C9.
Like
that's a good point. I think that a lot of people, like I know I said this in an earlier call, I want to see, like, I think C9 played a lot better against Shopify and IMT than they did against Dignitas. They had good early games, but they're going up against the two weakest teams, right? So I do want to see C9 actually get tested before I say this.
Yeah,
but
like
I think TL and FlyQuest are pretty strong against the field. I really do. I think C9 is the other clear top team. And right now, the guys, like the players kind of agree. I will say, I think the other comparison that I might be able to make is 21. But 21 was a bit more competitive across the board. But the top three ended up being 100 Thieves, TL, and C9.
Yes, that was what I was thinking.
Yes.
I was thinking that year, and then I was also kind of thinking, because I know the caller was saying that, TL looks really strong. I remember C9 in 2020 also looking really strong, and people were very sad that MSI didn't end up happening that year because they were just so dominant. Which I guess you could argue pushes against the idea that there were a good top three that year. But like, if we're just talking about sheer strength of teams, like in the same way that you're suggesting TL is really good, like I don't know. I don't know. I think 2021. I think maybe 2020 are interesting years if we're
think
talking
the-
about the last 5.
Other one I could maybe see would have actually been 2017 summer, which I believe was the Huni reign over IMT. But that was more. There wasn't a clear top 3. It was just TSM and IMT were really strong, and then C9 ended up sneaking in. I believe in the end, they beat COG. But I think the C9 COG was a little bit closer than what I would have right now is like C9 did.
All right, if we're going that far back, I'm going to go to
Yeah.
2016 summer when we had TSM, Immortals, and Cloud9. And it's so funny to say Immortals, but
Was it 6? Wait, was 16 the Huni reign over year? Yes, it was.
I think it was.
Yeah, this is the right answer, unironically. But COG like actually challenged, I think.
Yeah,
like looking at the,
I think that year was. Honestly, I think 2016 summer might have been the strong, because like going into Worlds that year, there was so much hope for all 3 of our teams. I think.
Yeah, there actually was, because that was like that
was North
the
America
double lift
Worlds.
TSM, like where double lift was like smurfing on people.
That was the year that everyone
Yeah.
thought TSM was going to destroy everybody, and
Yeah.
then like Immortals had like a really good run. So the
And
results at the
they
end of
lost it.
summer were TSM 17-1, Immortals 16-2, and then Cloud9 12-6. And I guess the 12-6 was not that great, but like C9 has historically just been considered like a really strong team. So like their 12-6 you felt like was more indicative of TSM and Immortals looking really good. I honestly feel like that would be my vote for like the top 3, or the best split with top 3 team.
I would agree, but I do think like I want to see C9 get tested. I think that this split like is already in contention though. I at the moment I actually think I thought this was an interesting call. So
yeah, no,
yeah.
I think it's I like it when we have topics that are phrased this way to kind of force conversations around interesting paths. Caller, I like this a lot. I think I need way more data though to decide whether or not we're there, because I think there's a world where like I don't know, maybe Dignitas is going to show up and make the other teams look a little more sketchy. You know, like do you still feel this way if Dignitas somehow beats Team Liquid this weekend, Caller?
probably not.
Yeah. And that's what I mean too. Is like we're one match away from this not feeling real, so we're on kind of shaky ground for this.
Yeah, I guess I'd still not as enthusiastic about this take if TL did lose, but I would still have a hard time just like wiping off of erasing their international performances and how strong they've looked against international teams.
Yeah.
Even like MSI, they did look very competitive against T1.
Cool.
But I think the 2016 is a good call. All 3 teams like were at least pretty competitive at Worlds, too. So, but we'll have to see how this shakes out.
TSM wasn't, but they were supposed to be, which is fine. So,
Yeah, they were not, but everybody thought they would, which was representative of the fact that they were supposed to be a really good team that split. Anyway, thank you so much, caller. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Yes, shout out to LCS content's been good. The thing that they did this weekend was nice. It was nice that they actually did something.
Oh yeah. Okay, did you like that? I didn't get a chance to see it yet, and I felt like it didn't get a lot of attention, which somewhat implied to me that like perhaps it was a bit of a flop. But did you think it was worth it?
I did not watch the full thing, but I watched like the first match, and I thought the teams were fun. I thought it was kind of cool to see the JoJo and Inspired reunion.
Yeah.
As well as like the APA's team, and seeing how they played against on their like supposedly best champs. I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my feedback would be that they should probably, when you're going into the break, you need to be telling people, hey, we're going to do the show match that weekend. Maybe they couldn't because it was about swarm mode or whatever. I don't know what the timelines were on all that being discussed publicly, but I don't know. Either way, thank you so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to do one final quick break for this episode. We are going to talk about NZXT. So NZXT, I'm really excited because I love it when I get to talk about a cool promotional opportunity. And guess what? July 16th to the 17th, which is tomorrow as we record this, but probably today as you are listening to it, if you're not listening to it live, NZXT has a summer sale that they are doing where you can get an exclusive build and save up to 50% off when upgrading player PCs. It's one of their PC models. So they have customs, the build fee is waived, 25% off player 1 upgrades, and 50% off player 2 and player 3 upgrades. So if you want to go take a look at their machines, their systems. Oh, and by the way, they have a special summer sale with builds that feature the H7 Elite. So if you are looking to spend some money over the next 2 days, perhaps don't spend it. Well, they sell some products on Amazon. I was going to say don't spend it on Prime Day, but you can go look at what they've got over on Prime Day. But you can also take a look at their website and look at the really cool upgrades that they have available at discounted pricing for, again, the player 1, player 2, player 3 systems. And then again, if maybe that's not you and you want to get something completely custom built by them, that build fee is waived. So that's available. There's a tracking link that you should all be able to use, which is in the description. I'm going to put it into the chats right now for you all to take a look at. But yeah, thank you so much to NZXT for sponsoring the show. They've got some awesome machines, including the one that I'm using right now. And yeah, they've got a variety of different options available for you if you're looking to pick up a machine. So thank you so much to NZXT for sponsoring a Hotline League and for being a wonderful partner, making awesome systems and hardware for the people who run these broadcasts that I'm doing, and also for all of you who might be watching them. So thank you. All right, we're getting to the final caller of the evening. Cubby's gone off to grab them. Thank you so much. Looking at different people in chat talking about all sorts of crazy stuff after that call. Clutch Gaming, what a throwback. What a throwback. Okay, we got our final caller here, who's Shalom. Shalom, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Forest Hills, New York.
New York. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I'm here to talk about Mr. Bugi.
Yes. Okay, we finally got into the roster changes that were announced today. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I shilled to get on the show. Just wanted to talk about the video that Revan put out a little bit, just because I thought it was kind of like a weird, 2-minute video explaining the roster change back to Bugi, and just a little bit about Bugi as a player. I really liked him when he was on TSM. I really liked him when he was playing with Maple. I'm a TSM, what's the word? Hobo, I guess. And Shopify kind of became my team. So I was actually excited about them when they started with Wild Turtle in the bot lane and then switching over to B-Voy. And although they didn't really get the results they wanted in spring, I definitely felt like Bugi was not the problem. I don't know what exactly the problem with that team was. Maybe it was a combination of some of Insanity's picks and Revan's coaching, but I don't really know. I didn't think Bugi was the issue, though, and I think he's a pretty exciting player, and I'm happy to see that he's back, but I thought it was really weird that he got replaced when he did.
All right.
That's it.
Cubby, you want to start us off here?
Yeah. Okay. My read on Shopify Rebellion. I thought last split, they were really throwing curveballs at teams and kind of taking advantage of catching teams off guard in best of ones. I respect that. I think it worked out for them well. I think that Bugi, his greatest strength from when it was TSM, is that Bugi will take risks early game. I think that he had more risks pay off with TSM than he had pay off with spring Shopify Rebellion. And I thought there were some instances where Bugi threw games. So I thought that with Tomio coming in, it made sense. You get Tomio to, as a rook, to at least sit behind the scenes and learn a lot. which for me, like Tomio, I think he needs learning more than he needs mechanics. I'm really never worried about Tomio and his mechanics. It's more so just like his direction of the game. So when the like they made the swap and talking about direction, that made some sense to me. My issue though with Shopify Rebellion is that they just lack an X factor at the LCS level. Like I think it's pretty clear to me that B-Boy can be the carry of that team. And in this meta right now, Marksman is just so like such a supportive role that's like non-interactive in like so many drafts, given what's like being picked and played, that they took away the greatest strength of the team in B-Boy. Now, this team, the core of Fake God, Tomio, and Zazel, they won NACL 2 splits in a row last year. I think that their greatest strength was that Fake God and Zazel, if you had me make an all-pro list last year, both those guys were top 2 in their roles, all-pro, both splits. In LCS, that's just not the case. And they really lack the firepower outside of B-Boy to actually have like a consistent carry. Like I view Insanity as a solid mid laner, but I don't expect Insanity to eat the map and then carry the game. I expect Insanity to be more of a supportive role player that's very flexible and really smart and not going to screw up his job, you know? And I feel like they have that player in Fake God, Insanity, and Zazel. And when they're playing in Challengers League against players that are still learning, they can really take advantage of that and win a lot of games. And Tomio was like, everyone on that team was like kind of supportive. Like they had Lost be a really big carry in spring. Like they had M&S and Diplex who were way better than their competition pretty much outside of like the Insanity Dignitas roster when thinking of Challengers League. And then in summer, they ran it back. The league was watered down because they took out all the academy teams. And they had Young and Meech, who were pretty decent. Like Young and Meech weren't the best laners, but they could team fight pretty well. And these guys were always able to get in decent spots because Fake God was winning lanes on his own. And they were really smart about the game. So they would take their winning lanes and find angles and win by being smarter. They aren't good enough laners in LCS to be able to replicate that. So when they talked about like lacking direction and firepower, like that makes sense to me because I don't think they have firepower at the LCS level. I feel like B-Boy is the one guy that's like really proven he can be a mainstay carry, and this meta sucks to carry at AD. So I really feel like this team is floundering. I think that's my diagnosis as to why. I'm not surprised they're making this move because I feel like Bugi is at least an X factor because he's going to do random shit that teams won't expect. And they can flip games for better or worse. I don't think this matters much for them. And I think that the approach to this roster overall was pretty poor. Like, I feel like this roster was created because at some point in time, Revan worked with everyone on the team. And it's not working. And they don't have someone that's like this big guy that's going to go out and win lanes where they can win. So I'm not surprised this team's floundering. And I'm not surprised they made this change because it's the one change they can make that costs $0. So I feel like they're still going to be a little bit lost. But who knows? Maybe it helps a little bit. So
I really like that last point, which is like they've made the one change they could make for no money.
It's true. Like, yeah,
dude,
no one made a change for money. This is the off season that had the least amount of changes by a long shot. Yeah. And I really feel like money comes into play with that, you know?
Yeah. But this wasn't really, when you say this off season, you mean
spring to summer.
Spring or summer, yeah.
Yeah, I think there was like 6 changes in total, and 4 of them were Dignitas.
Dude, I've just been so disappointed by this organization. Like, why is this what we got? It's so frustrating to me. You know, like TSM leaves, you're like, okay, these guys have been kind of checked out, and then we just replace them with like worse Immortals.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
I know they did a little bit of content at the start of summer, so I know that they're doing, and I do appreciate that. For instance, they did the video with Revan where he's explaining this stuff. Like I know, caller, that you were saying that you were like, oh yeah, that 2-minute video was weird. Honestly, it's 2 minutes longer than we get for most of these teams when they're making roster changes. So I do appreciate that they at least did that. But yeah, I don't know. Part of the reason I compare them to Immortals is because I feel like you put players on Immortals and they just consistently underperform their potential. And I feel like we've seen that for years now. And I feel as though that is what Shopify is shaping up to be. Now, obviously, they haven't even been in the split or the league for a full year, but like, I don't like what their approach was when they entered the space in terms of like running for a lot of the TSM infrastructure and stuff. I would have rather have seen them try to build from the ground up, and I feel like we're seeing the results of that decision making time and time again, as they've been in the league. So I hope this changes things for them and makes them more compelling, but I don't see that.
I feel like it's their first year. I think that Immortals in the past has actually had better roster builds for me than this build for Shopify Rebellion. Again, like the big thing for me, I don't know who's going to be the big carry outside B-Voy. And when they have the most success, it's like when they're putting B-Voy on just on-hit ADs and like throwing tanks in front of them so that B-Voy can just have as much space to do what he wants to do. And I think that's when Shopify was at their most successful. The meta is like the exact opposite of what you want to do for that now. And I really think that like in the right team, Insanity and Zazel like can be good players. Like these guys are really smart at their job and their role. It's just that I don't know who the big carry is on this team. And I feel like the construction like wasn't as good. Like even at least with the Kenby version of Immortals, I feel like Kenby and like the tactical like iterations had some hope. I just think that the pieces they put around them like weren't the best. So yeah, I don't know. I think that like again, like you bet on Revan. Every player in this roster has worked with Revan before. And if you are a new org, like that's honestly not a terrible bet. Like they won 2 splits of NACL. I just think that like transitioning what won them NACL versus LCS, like it doesn't transition. Like I really feel like this was the team where you want to pair Insanity and Zazel with a really like a someone with firepower that's like young and like can like go out and win lanes like a 30. Like they put a lot of experience around Tomio, and he developed really nicely last split because of that. Because Tomio was learning a crap ton from just being on these teams that had a lot of guys that played competitive at a lot of different levels. But I don't know. I feel like the change, like, I don't think Tomio played well at all, but I think if you give any rookie jungler that team in LCS, they're going to struggle. So I it's hard for me to like blame Tomio for this. I think that overall, like, Bugi is just the X factor that this team needs to like throw enough curveballs or like fuck things up enough where it's just weird that teams can't face it, where they might be able to win games. But they're getting smashed playing standard, so they really just have to try something.
I'm happy that you and I are in agreement, and there's no guest co-host on this episode that can disagree. You know, somebody could have, but if they would, they're screaming into the void right now, and they have no voice on this episode because I reached out to them and they're just relegated to Twitch chat, which is not integrated onto the VOD, and no one will hear them scream.
And, you know, if they were a co-host and they chose to go home, then you could have scheduled a round going home with the co-host. But since they would be a prospective guest, there's just no hope. Yeah. So it's really too bad.
It's just unfortunate we don't have a third opinion that could be offered on the Shopify situation. I'll tell you this. Tell you this is Oh, sorry, caller. Is there something?
Caller, aka third opinion we have. What's up?
No, I got you. Don't worry. I'm with you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I will tell you this personal anecdote that relates to this. This past weekend, I was trying to make a purchase online, which I found like a sale that was going on, and I was like, "Ooh, I can get like a really good deal on this," and I went to go purchase it, and the item couldn't be added to the shopping cart. And I kept doing this over and over again. It was a huge issue. And then I went to the homepage of this website where the top text said, Shopify is having an outage that won't let you add add things to cart. Please try again later. And I was like, wow, Shopify is consistently letting me down, even outside of the esport. Caller, anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, I know it's getting pretty late. I just, I'd be happy to shout something out. I just wanted to add one more thing, if it's all good with you guys.
Yeah.
Regarding Bugi.
Sure.
So, is there just like no hope for this player? Because like I'm definitely not trying to badmouth Tomio. Like I think again, like I agree with you, Cubby, that in any situation like this rookie jungler would have looked pretty bad. But And there are definitely games where Bugi ints, like totally ints, and I just don't feel like he's like Isma though, where like he has to do something between levels 1 and 3, or he's just like the most useless jungler on the entire planet. You know what I mean? Like I think Bugi still
I give
finds like.
Isma more credit than that, but
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't know. I just feel like you said, like that X factor, So is it hopeless for Boogie?
I think it's really tough for Shopify Rebellion, given the state they're in now, to find a way to make playoffs, given they already lost to Immortals. They have to.
Yeah, I was gonna say
really hard.
I feel like we were talking. I was saying, this is the weekend to figure out what's going on with Dignitas. It's actually the weekend to figure out what's going on with Shopify because they're facing NRG. If they can't beat NRG, it's fucking Jover, bro. All right, they're gonna lose to Dig after that. They're gonna lose to FlyQuest. They're gonna lose to 100 Thieves. I think that's probably why they made the change. Quite frankly, it's because they're probably looking at the schedule, being like, well, if we lose this week.
Yeah, they have to beat NRG. If not, their hopes are pretty ogre, if we're being honest. If they beat NRG and 100 Thieves...
We're trying to get the younger audience. It's Jover.
Oh, sorry.
Jover.
Well, yeah. If they beat 100, NRG, at least they'd have a tiebreaker over them, and same with 100 Thieves. And I know they faced 100 Thieves in the last week, so they will have time to prep for that. So,
Shalom, anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Yes, sir. Shout out to you, Travis. I met you back at 2016 finals at Madison Square Garden, CLG versus TSM.
That's like my favorite match I've ever watched.
Yeah, I met you outside the venue, I think before the game started, and I was like, holy shit, Travis in real life. Didn't expect to see that today. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You're a cool guy.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling.
Peace.
By the way, if anyone would like to see me in real life in Los Angeles, it's not that difficult, but also it's especially not that difficult on the weekend of August 16th, 17th, and 18th. One, I'll be at an Olivia Rodrigo concert on that Friday night, but especially those other 3 days, I will be spending some of my time at Command Fest Los Angeles. So if you want to come play Magic the Gathering with me, I'll be at Command Fest that weekend. And it is in Los Angeles. So, yeah. But in that Friday night evening, I will be at the Guts Tour. So, yeah. Also got Sabrina Carpenter tickets. So I just need to get Chapel Roan, and then I'll have the big three. All right.
Damn, you're all about the girly pop.
Dude, I was just, since the end of the show, I think I can have this conversation. I was reflecting on this recently. And I think it is interesting because I am not normally historically about that girly pop. But I feel like there's a movement where a lot of these singers are pulling a lot of inspiration from like late 90s and 2000s like musicians. Like obviously Olivia Rodrigo is heavily inspired by Paramore to the extent that like she has to rev share with her now.
Yeah.
And what I'm sad about is that there is not a lot. I have not been able to discover any like male lead singers or male groups or anything like that are doing this same thing where they're pulling so much from those eras. And I'm fine with it in one sense because like, whatever, I can listen to some girly pop for a bit. But on the other sense, a lot of the songs are not entirely applicable to me. So like, for instance, Chapel Roan, I think it's Chapel, singing the song Phenomenon, whatever, I can't say it. That is just like a song that is inherently not written for me to relate to. So, I would just like it if we got some cool male singers coming in, jamming on those 90s and 2000s influences.
Yeah, I was about to say, I will say, like, a lot of the music I like stays in that era. And also, I was a big fan of Olivia Rodrigo's latest album. Sabrina Carpenter slaps. So I can't blame you for this, but yeah, someone in the chat said Brockhampton. That's a decent shout. I mean, the most modern artists I listen to are like, for guys would be Ed Sheeran and John Mayer, who are like super mainstream. But I also like some EDM, like Millennium. But a lot of times like they'll have guest singers, and those are mostly female. So, um, but yeah.
I just like, where's my my artists who are taking Dashboard Confessionals, but making it like the 2024 version?
Yeah.
You know, like I
mean,
I do think Dashboard is a little bit more dated, even, or it hasn't
Oh.
aged as well as other stuff. But
Dude.
like, yeah,
Noah Khan. You like his music?
I do like Noah Khan. I do like Noah
good.
Khan. I would say that I'm not as into Noah Khan as I am
That's
the
fine.
other stuff. He is very like folk.
He's good.
And
Yeah.
I did like a lot of folk indie, but that's what I'm talking about. Is like part of the reason I'm jamming so much on like Sabrina and Olivia is because like folk has, I feel like, never truly gone away, whereas I
Yeah.
do, and like there's been folk indie folk music forever. Oh man, who's the
I like Hosier a
Lord
lot.
Lord Huron is like
Yeah.
like an artist that is an example of, I was listening to that band in 2018, or that group in 2018. So like that stuff has been around, but I feel like Olivia and Sabrina are really like pushing this stuff that I grew up on.
Yeah.
And that I have not heard in a while, and I'm just excited about it. So
Yeah. The Guts album is really good. I thought that should have won the album of the year.
I did see Portugal the Man last year, and that was really fun. I don't know if you're
Nice.
familiar with them. I'd be down
No,
to see Glass
no.
Animals, but yeah.
Yeah. Glass Animal's good, yeah.
Do you go to any concerts or shows?
I went to Noah Khan at the Hollywood Bowl. First time I went to that venue. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
awesome.
That's cool.
That venue is amazing. If you guys have a chance to go in the chat ever, that's an unreal album. Also, it made me want to go see like someone at the Red Rocks, quite frankly. But no, I think the last concert I went to before that was when Ed Sheeran was in town.
Nice.
And then another fun one I went to was, so I got a buddy who's an artist, and he's bigger now, but at the time he was opening for Chelsea Cutler and Quinn 92. I saw him back in Chicago outside, and that was really fun. I like Chelsea Cutler a lot, and Quinn 92 is pretty good too. So
Also, shout out to Numi, because
yeah,
I would not be able to get the Sabrina Carpenter tickets without her.
she's pretty good with tickets.
And I got extra Olivia Rodrigo tickets, which I have to figure out what I want to do with. I'll probably pass them to friends or something, because she was able to secure those for me. So she's just like the ticket goddess.
Yeah, she's pretty good at that.
Yeah. So, all right, everybody. This is Hotline League. We went way longer than I expected us to on an episode that was just the two of us, but I
That's my
guess
bad.
we were making up for time. No, it was all good.
The Tomio caller was
I just
Anyway.
think all of our, like, we just had good conversations around every. There was not a
had some
caller
good
that
takes.
called in. There are frequent times where we have, almost every episode, we have at least one or two calls where somebody calls in, and like the take's just not it. You know, it's like kind of obvious, and like they're not doing a great job of explaining it. And I don't blame you in those situations, because I think sometimes people will put in like a really interesting take, and you're like, oh, this will be good, and then they get on, and it's just like a nothing burger. But yeah, we just were able to have great conversations around a lot of the calls tonight. So
Yeah.
all right, what do you want to shout out or plug?
Thanks to everyone that's been tuning into my streams and VOD reviews. I'm CubbyXX everywhere. Especially if you guys tuned in to NACL the last couple weeks. It was format related, not NACL related, you know, even though it is the NACL format. But I hope you guys enjoyed the money matches. They were quite fun. And yeah, shout out to you, Travis, and shout out to my job for allowing me to do cool stuff like go home and play golf with my dad for a weekend. That was really fun. So flexibility is sometimes really nice. Yeah.
100%. For me, I'll give a shout out to everybody who subbed. So we went, I think last week we probably had something like 850 subs. I think because Twitch raised the prices on subs a bunch, we've lost a lot. Plus we missed last week. So we're now down to like 622. So we're down 200 plus subs, I think, probably from last week or from 2 weeks ago to now. So if you're listening to this later on and you feel like hooking it up, feel free to come throw your Prime. Also, I missed Jeremy. I'm sorry, Jeremy. Jeremy and Bug Juice reviews, but I think I did get Bug Juice, but Jeremy gifted 5 YouTube memberships over on YouTube. So thank you, Jeremy, for that. I hope you're still here. I know it's been almost an hour. And yeah, I feel like there was something else I was supposed to shout out. Oh, Prize Picks. Please, if you are thinking about doing stuff with Prize Picks, this would be a great week to make your deposit. You can always hold on the deposit until, LCS finals or something. But again, only do that if it's within your financial means and if you feel like it is something that you can do in a healthy way. I don't want anyone to make poor decisions, but that would be kind of cool. We'll catch you all next week. Bye. Tune into LCS this weekend.